we are streaming.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see that whatever Evan did with him eventually. But I like that idea of like keeping these characters in kayfabe because why not? They work at it.
Yeah, totally. And it's just like the way you bring it, the way you mention it, it makes me think of like Jason's Washington book, where you could, if you keep kayfabe, like you could have magic happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like those Japanese, like the manga wrestling books that I have are like that. Because like I can't read them, but I don't think they're behind the scenes. It's like everybody looks like they're always in character. Like that Valiant, that WWF Valiant books where the Road Warriors are like on vacation and they're full gimmick driving down the road in a motorcycle and a sidecar.
You know what's amazing?
That's some of my favorite dumb shit.
Jim Shooter talks about that on that real long interview, and you know his bipolarity in terms of his like objectivism and Rand shit. Jim Shooter asked, here, hold up. Jim Shooter asked Ditko if he would draw some comics for Valiant, and let me make sure that there's not two audios going. Okay, we're good.
We should look at that Ditko Exo Man of War fill-in issue sometime.
But
talk about ridiculous.
When Ditko suggested or whatever, like when Jim Shooter suggested to Ditko to do it, because like I can only I can only make comics with objectively good guys and objectively bad guys, and Jim Shooter's like, draw wrestling books, faces and heels. It's very
That's
clear.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. I love whenever people will talk about wrestling like through that lens, like the Barton Fink kind of stuff of like, we're going to write us a wrestling picture. You know, like it's this genre outside of wrestling. That stuff always amuses me. A movie that just got put on my to-watch list is All the Marbles. You ever hear of it?
No.
It has Peter Falk managing a girls' tag team.
Oh, that's it.
To try to get him to the top or whatever. And what's Rocky's brother-in-law? Burt Lancaster, Burt Ward, Burt something. You know who I'm talking about? Paulie.
Oh, the actor.
He plays like the crooked promoter.
So that guy's typecast forever, man.
Oh yeah. What else could he be? But that's such a like he's so perfect as like that crooked territory era promoter.
Do you remember his character in The Sopranos, Uncle Paulie?
No, I don't.
He's super old.
I need to rewatch that.
Yeah, he's super old, and he has so much respect through the family and stuff. He's got the ear of. He lends the ear to this guy who does a bad thing. Like, this guy breaks up with his girlfriend, and some dude on the street is like eyeballing him, but he's one of those jealous guys, and fucking. This guy beats the fuck out of the dude, puts him in a hospital. It turns out that the guy who got beat up is like the son of some connected guy. And so the guy who did it, this hothead, is completely fucking beside himself because he knows what's coming to him and shit. He's in hiding. And Uncle Paulie comes to town. And he's Bobby Bacala's dad in the series. And I think he's only in that one episode. But he's dying of cancer. He's got this cough that's just so gross. And he's like, listen, I can get to the kid. The kid trusts me. I'm going to be the one to do it. But Bobby Bacala's like, my dad is fucking dying of stage 4 cancer. He can't even, like, catch a good breath. He coughs up blood. Like, how's he going to, like, do this to this guy? And it was one of those things where, like, you know, in his day, he was a fucking jackal, you know, like, just like the worst, most vicious dude. So he wanted to get one last one in. A great episode. Because, of course, when Uncle Paulie goes to fucking do the deal, it doesn't go easy.
Yeah, of course.
But that guy's just great, man. He's got that face. He's got that great New York
100%
energy, man. And just like a no-nonsense motherfucker. I want to take this down real quick.
Did you send me a link to this?
Oh, you know what? That's the part I forgot.
I don't know why that doesn't come up anywhere on...
Yeah, let me send you a link. Yeah, it's real dumb that it doesn't... are you on the Kayfabe YouTube?
I was, yeah.
And you hit the live?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because it's unlisted. 1 second, guys. I just got to send Jimmy a deal.
I watched oh man, now I forget the name of it. The one in the 50s, the black and white wrestling movie.
Yeah, with Vanganya or whatever. Oh no, that was in the 70s. The one that has Ric Flair in it.
Oh, I need to see that one now.
Yeah.
This was something tonight, but it's about a con man who gets involved in pro wrestling, and wrestling's kind of a side piece of it. I think it might have been a Criterion release. Somebody sent us a DVD or a Blu-ray of it years ago in a mail bag, and I kind of love these like wrestling as, I don't know, other formats or something.
Yeah.
It's entertaining to see that stuff portrayed.
So I sent you the link. I think we're pretty well set up. Yeah, we're going to have a good time recording. Eric Larson's the guy that we're going to chat with. We're going to look at that first mini-series.
Man, it's loaded with stuff. I was going through that this week. Every issue is just loaded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the letters pages.
Oh, especially the letters pages. I mean, I have to fucking... Part of like what we're doing with the channel and having these guys on, it's like the term that the kids use these days is you're giving them their flowers while they could still smell them, you know? And he gets flowers, man, for that letters page, because like on the video I could show off the comics I was making at the time on just like typing paper and stuff like, and to read that's a way to start was such a bolstering of that idea. Made me feel so good, kept me at it.
And then issue 2, he announces the character contest. Mm-hmm. It just is. It doesn't. And I think it's issue 3. J. Scott Campbell fan artwork.
Oh yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's a question. Like, was Campbell part of Wildstorm at that point? You know, that's a question. Get that iPad and stuff.
A lot of love for Eric Larson in the chat. Jabba, I did look at the Landgraf Kickstarter. It's amazing to me that Landgraf is like making new comics. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Yeah, it's great.
I saw the clip from the Clouds interview when we showed him that piece.
Yes.
And with sincerity, he like shakes his head and is like, "You still got it." I meant to tape this thing down. I brought the tape in, and then I see where it is. So many moving pieces. So many moving pieces. We're gonna take a look at what we're gonna call the video. We're gonna call it Alan Moore's Marvel Masterpiece, and it's the Captain Britain stuff that he did in tandem with Marvel Man, or Miracle Man as we know him in the States, which is a very fascinating lens to look through this series because it's couldn't be more different.
Do you ever come across anything in your Alan Moore reading where he talks about his work schedule, like when he's doing multiple books at once?
I think
a heady time.
I think he's very immersive, and I think like he's never stopped being that level of immersive.
Yeah.
I think it consumes him.
I think about our review of his masterclass, and just all the stuff we didn't cover.
Totally,
it really is a fun.
And
they ought to sell that differently. Like besides the masterclass stuff, they ought to sell it as just like here's 6 hours of Alan Moore.
Totally
telling stories.
Easy to sell it that way.
Referencing stuff. It reminds me a little bit of like Stephen King's Dawn's Macabre, where it's like because Alan Moore drops a lot of examples and things.
Yeah.
Which is real insightful. Yeah, there's a lot in that I like.
So the first one is not Moore. This fucking character.
Really bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to step on anything I'm going to say in the video.
Right.
But it's cool to see these.
Yeah, and once again, this is just a consequence of putting stuff away. And then, when you're putting stuff away, you don't just do that. You start riffling through your shit. And then I saw it, and then I just was like, let me see these fucking Alan Moore shits, man. Because I know so much of that other stuff so well. Part of my reading stack is like my other Alan Moore comics. Like, let me fuck with these, man. There might be a fairly routine amount of Alan Moore videos in the forthcoming future with that in mind. Brought to light.
I just reread
Small
that
Killing.
this week.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, good. So maybe I'll set myself up with that for next week.
It's a weird book.
Yeah.
One of the.
I just want to read
things.
his part. I don't want to do Joyce.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. I wanted some CIA stuff, and it's not exactly the stuff that I'm going over, but it's you get sucked in pretty quick.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what with these. I'm like, all right, man. Let me see where Alan Moore is, and I'm very happy with where he is. Do you have your poster, Jimmy? Here it is. Dude, let's get this show on the road, man.
You ready?
Lock me in real quick. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
We're going to be taking a look at Alan Moore's Marvel masterpiece today, Jimmy. But first, got to give you guys a heads up that we have a Patreon that you can support to keep the channel going. And the King Kayfabers on our Patreon are watching us stream our recording session live privately. And they get access to all the videos that we record before anybody else completely mitigates the kayfabe effect. But the videos are also brought to you by the comic books that we make before you. You see a healthy sampling of our bibliography. Red Room is out there, two trade paperbacks of that. Here are the covers for the next Red Room comic. Here's the first cover. Here's the second cover, Jimmy's variant cover, and we're going to do a sketch cover for that first issue. There is Hip Hop Family Tree celebrating its 10-year anniversary. There are 4 volumes of that out there, but forthcoming there is going to be the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus Collection. Thank you guys so much for supporting that in such a big way. 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design and WYSIWYG. Jimmy has Street Angel Princess of Poverty coming to you sooner than later. It is a great companion piece for Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, and both books will comprise of the entire bibliography of Jimmy's Street Angel comics. Plain Jane's is out there, and of course, the fantastic Incredible Hulk Grand Design Treasury Edition is out there for you to get your hands on at this very moment. Support our books, keep these videos going, and without further ado, let's take a look through these issues of X-Men Archive, right? You print X-Men real big. Captain Britain. These are the Captain Britain comics that Alan Moore wrote with Alan Davis doing the drawing chores on the thing. And one of the remarkable aspects to this series is that Alan Moore was writing and making these comics with Alan Davis in tandem with Warrior Magazine, doing V for Vendetta, and most notably Marvel Man, known in the States as Miracle Man. So one of the things that I wanted to sort of show off while looking at this is just keeping those tonal ideas in mind, because it shows Alan Moore's chops as a writer, because it is far different in so many ways than his work in Miracle Man, though in some ways it explores some of the same themes.
Yeah, you can definitely see him taking on superheroes in a way that isn't just in Miracle Man and Captain Britain, but even like Watchmen and stuff. Like it's definitely, I feel like he has a perspective on superheroes that's pretty consistent throughout his body of work.
Yeah.
What he does with it may vary a little bit, but it's definitely this idea of like, how do those things exist in a real world?
There are parts of this comic where I feel like he forgets which comic he's working on. The name Miracle Man is said several times.
Yes.
There are these villainous V for Vendetta like bad guys who are the grand oppressors and stuff. Some of the themes that he explores elsewhere are certainly here, And I won't go so far as to say this is a revisionist superhero comic, but within the first two stories, Captain Britain fully gets killed. This is Captain Britain right here. So once we get to this strip called A Rag, a Bone, a Hank of Hair, which shows up in issue 1 of a comic called Daredevil. So this is issue 1 of something new. The characters of Merlin and Roma, who, for those playing at home, man, she is the one that sends the X-Men through the Siege Perilous to Australia. They are literally rebuilding Captain Britain.
Yes. Yeah, Roma's rebuilding his physical body while Merlin is putting together his soul.
I love it, and because the thing about that is now we get this origin story to catch everybody up to speed while Merlin is implanting memories, thoughts, and ideas into the Captain Britain brain that's warehoused inside this skull. So it's catching everybody up to speed, and it's, issue 1.
Look at the Alan Davis art, and it's real interesting. In the very first issue, Alan Davis writes the intro and talks about this as like a job, like his first paying comics gig. Like he had a full-time job working, I think, loading trucks or something.
Yeah.
And this was totally a side gig where like he considered his art a hobby, but it was a real boon to actually get paid for it, especially at a time when comics were considered like, very second-rate, kind of a joke.
And certainly in Britain.
Yes. And he says all that in the intro. I'm not putting words in his mouth here, but it's interesting to see his development too.
Yeah.
Like there's a great energy in these comics that comes with that youthful exuberance.
And he's getting, this is a drawing job on rails with voluminous amounts of text from Alan Moore describing what should go in each scene. So Alan Moore is setting you up to compose beautiful pages and get enough story across. How much of a bitch would it have been to draw the OG Captain Britain having to draw a lion?
Not only that, I don't know that we're talking about Captain Britain if this is his costume. Because I remember getting those Marvel Universe books, like early, first year of reading comics.
Right.
And I'd just go through and look at all the characters and who looked cool and stuff. And it was like, Captain Britain was such a cool looking character.
Totally.
In the redesign, in the costume that we're seeing here by Alan Davis.
Yeah.
That costume is amazing, and that original costume, what a dud.
Yeah, that was Herb Trimpe and Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont and Trimpe, they established a lot of the characters that we're playing around with here. And if you're a longtime Kayfaber and you watched our video on the Jim Lee X-Men trading cards, we were cutting promos on all the Excalibur characters. These are all the ones that you're going to see in here. Saturnine and Megan.
Go back one page. Like when they're giving him life, look at the cartoony expression on his face, those giant cartoon eyeballs.
Totally.
Love it. And a great like overall effect, and even the panel border being that jagged starburst. Fantastic.
This is episodic comics in the same way that the Miracle Man ones were. And man, now that I'm thinking about it, the trajectory is even the same. Because you get maybe 7-page deals, just like you did with the Miracle Man stuff to start. And then when Miracle Man comes to America and it gets full issues worth of material, the story gets to expand in like later issues.
It is so dense in the beginning. It's good that you note that, because I think some of those early ones might even be 5 pages.
Right. Look at that, man. I think Alan Moore said he turned into a magician when he was 40, but I think there might be some evidence that he was kayfabing himself pretty early.
Could be destiny. Could be destiny there.
But this story is the one where they're rebuilding Captain Britain, and one page is bones, the next page is some musculature, the next page is a little something else, where the Alan Moore script and the design of the pages is divorced from like almost anything else you would see in an issue of 2000 AD or this Daredevil's comic. It all seems very regimented and clear, and he's playing with different structures in every strip. And if you just go through old 2000 ADs, you can always find the Alan Moore one without even seeing the damn
Night Nocturne. Is there any combination of story and art that you can do that makes Night Nocturne successful?
I Am Going to Sleep.
That's a rough name to overcome.
Such a good costume. Look, it's a helmet.
That helmet's really cool. There's some good shots of Captain Britain throughout this where it's like it feels very 3D.
Yeah.
That 3/4 view. Look at this for again, fun drawing, just pushing that boundary. He tells the story though with the costume variants that they had he had drawn this costume. You know, they needed a new costume. He liked it, was happy with it, and then I think Jim Shooter gets involved and he wants to see some other costume designs. So then Alan Davis is trying to draw lame designs,
right?
So as not to lose the costume that he likes.
And it is an iconic costume. Like I got those Marvel Universe Series 2 cards, right? And they were just like rife with these patriotic type characters. You had your Captain Britain, you had U.S. Agent.
Yeah, that was another one I liked. How much does this feel like, you know, you mentioned 2000 AD, like flipping through it, it feels like this is not your house style, Marvel house style. Like this feels like that UK, well, I'm going to say 2000 AD. You know, I don't know what else I would compare it to in that regard, but it has that feeling. Well, maybe Miracle Man, you know, something like that. But it feels like that British, I don't know, it has that flavor.
They never figured out lettering over there, man. Like, look at how those words bump up against the balloons and stuff like that. Like, that's just awful.
Yeah, there's a lot of inconsistency in the lettering. It looks like sometimes on the same page it looks like multiple hands involved, different sizes and things.
You see stuff like the Big Ben and all that, like you can't help but think of Miracle Man in a way. And the story builds up to an epic battle where there is tons of destruction and characters getting killed, maimed, all kinds of stuff like you would see in, you know, Miracle Man 15.
It makes me really curious, like, to have an overlap of like when are these actually done? Because at some point, like, Alan Davis is drawing Miracle Man. Is it the same? Is there overlap? Like, are these guys going back and forth in a monthly assignment between these two sets of characters?
At the time of these being constructed, it would be Gary Leach doing the Miracle Man stuff. But they are part and parcel coming out at the same exact time. That's the noteworthy piece, because it just shows the chops that Alan Moore has on display. These Marvel comics, this is a job. This is an assignment that he happened into, and it's on rails with characters that he does not own, nor does he necessarily want to start to invent a bunch of new guys for Marvel. So it is a Marvel comic, but the imagination that he's able to put into here, just like that earlier story where they're rebuilding Captain Britain, nobody else would have done something like that at the time.
Yeah, it's very peculiar. Makes you wonder where that even comes from. Because now it feels like, oh yeah, this idea of like AI and longevity and saving our consciousness and stuff,
right?
Kind of there's a place for it. I don't know about like 1982.
Arcade shows up in the early Chris Claremont, Herb Trimpe joints. I think Arcade showed up in those comics. So Moore still doing what he does, man, reading entire runs of things, trying to figure out like the pieces and bits that work for him.
That's 2000 AD lettering right there.
Yeah, did Tom Frame do that piece? Actually, this whole piece kind of looks like him.
It does. I wonder if he does letter something.
Yeah, I know. I gotta look now. No. It's just got these B-lister ass characters.
Yeah, it's really strange. But then you get these great, you know, like Davis is good from early on. Like, you know, he gets interesting really quick.
Yeah, it's true. Look at that motley crew right there, man.
That looks like an Avengers lineup from the 90s.
But there would be certain goofball characters that would show up, like those weird aliens in the Miracle Man comics. When you see bits like this, that feels like the V for Vendetta energy.
There's all kinds of stuff. Like, look at how he's cutting artwork up in that panel background.
Yeah.
Very inventive. That's the stuff I'd be curious to see what the script says.
Totally. Now, this is a funny issue right here, because there's some real stuff on display. The other fun thing about these sort of serialized smaller strips where you get 3 or 4 stories per issue is you get to see the various ways that Moore starts out each strip with a bang in some fashion. Are these like the frog dudes from the old Hulk comics?
That's a good question. They look like them.
Yeah. And one of the MacGuffin characters that carries on throughout is this Fury character. Just think of him as your Doomsday. It made me think like what a Death of Superman could have been from like an Alan Moore in a way, man. Because this is your Doomsday character that is kind of on the hunt for Captain Britain the entire time.
That's a great call. Whenever I saw it, like I went right to 1963. Like the Fury, you know, like let's use that name some more.
Totally. You have your like multiverse of Captain Britons, which starts to make you think about Moore's love of Superman and Supreme, how he would play with those kinds of Mort Weisinger tropes. So you got a whole bunch of those. And I wonder if people call it, like, in fanboy speak, I might get this wrong, but like the modern Marvel time frame or what is like Earth 616 or something. That's coined in here. Like, they talk about that in here when they talk about all the different Captain Britons that exist in different space times. And they call out several different Earths, and I wonder if it all comes from Alan Moore.
I love that they include the covers.
Yeah,
like that's
great.
a nice choice in these reprints. You know what's wild is you think of all like the multiverse stuff in Marvel nowadays, like in their, especially in the cinematic universe. Yes, unbelievable. But I think of like DC and all their crisis and trying to clean up all of their multiversity, and it's sort of like now Marvel successful is moving in that direction, which we've seen DC working on trying to like fix for 50 years. Right. You're going to open that can?
I linger here, ladies and gentlemen, because
unbelievable.
It's like Alan Moore got confused completely because it's Miracle Man. It's Miracle Man. It's a blonde guy with the same outfit. They call him Miracle Man. Now, he was Marvel Man in the damn Warrior comics. Alan Davis will draw Miracle Man comics. Miracle Man becomes a Marvel character some years later. Like, this might be Exhibit A of Alan Moore as magician.
I was going to say, like, you start planning this stuff. That's what you would hear, like, magicians talk about doing, right? like this is some kind of sigil or something.
There's whole, like, conspiracy theories about the Berenstain Bears, Mandela effects, and multi-universes.
Wild. And equally wild, this character and its design and the whole look. And even these are printed on newsprint.
Yeah, it's great. That Miracle Man piece though, that was worth the price of admission to get a video. See, we got our Earth 238 shits, Earth 616, Earth 920. So he's not shying away from the multi-Earth stuff. He even got like these symbols. I'm sure this Celtic knot or whatever the hell it is probably has something to do with the multiverse.
Yeah, it's a pretty strange comic to revisit now. All the aliens and things that populate it. It doesn't feel like a Marvel comic.
No, it feels like the best of like a Silver Age DC that money could buy or something. But it is continuous, lush imagination. Alan Moore acknowledging, like, I am playing with superhero tropes here, and you could do anything, down to having like a Howard Cosell. You know, I think this is like parody. Maybe People's Court was brand new whenever this came out. Then we sort of got to start to build in our sort of savior character.
By the way, call for superhero legislation.
Right.
I mean, clip it out and paste that into Watchmen.
Totally. There are these moments where I'm like, did we miss something? Because the one strip to the next, a whole lot of stuff will happen.
Yes.
You know, like you go from one strip to the next, and now there's like internment camps for mutants and superheroes. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened here?
Yeah, I feel like what you see there is that idea of like Moore's writing an ongoing serial, and after 7 chapters he had this idea, so fold it in there.
Yeah.
Let's keep running with it.
And he built a bunch of these characters in. Now he's got them all in the same room.
Oh man, go back one. Look at this weird effect of having 2 panels next to each other. I think if Ivan Brunetti talks about animation of having same size characters in subsequent panels, but it's so weird to look at considering what this story is of like multiple versions and dimensions of these characters. Love all this extra stuff.
So good to have these kind of inclusions into the comic.
A lot of John Byrne.
I was going to say that. That looks so John Byrne-ish right there.
Yeah, a lot of John Byrne there. It's worth noting, too, like, Alan Moore doesn't want this reprinted, you know, at some point early in his career. And it creates a real problem with Alan Davis. Like, that's something that's come up over the decades. It's that risk of the creator, you know, who owns what, and you're doing collaborations, and it's a risk. Not even accounting for like Marvel being like the third dance partner in that circle.
Yeah, sure. But it does feel kind of silly to think that you have any say in that. You know, in Marvel reprinting something they own or not. Certainly capitalizing off of your name. Once this Fury shows up, it gets pretty radical when you have Merlin, Roma, and they're kind of playing a chess game against this other bad guy entity. And you can see it right there where they're moving chess pieces almost as the real world battle is going on. And then new pieces are emerging. A lot of magic in here. A lot of magic stuff.
I go back and forth on the Fury design. Like, there's some stuff here that looks really cool. And getting, like, a close-up of his face, or its face, I kind of like it because it's just... Nothing looks like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's little humanoidal elements. But overall, it's like, this is a very uniquely designed character. Maybe generic, maybe functional. Kind of a neat thing, though.
Yeah.
I like the comparison to Doomsday.
Characters just getting decimated by this thing, the Fury. The whole deal with the Fury, and it's one of those great superhero comic things where the Alan Moore build to the Fury is this guy stops at nothing to accomplish his task. It's never ending, and his job is to like wipe out superheroes or something. Captain Britain is on his mind. He will not stop until he takes care of everybody. So what do you do with that? You know, it's a great build over a bunch of issues, which is like the Doomsday thing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, that part. When Captain Britain shows up, and it's the beginning of the story, he shows up in this universe that is all superheroes have been wiped out, and whenever he shows up, it's like, uh-oh, fire up the Fury again.
It's a great ending, and it is canceled. So it's almost like the second death of Captain Britain in the Alan Moore run. But we have our final giant big battle with the sort of bad guy telepath dude and Captain Britain and his people. And it's earth-shattering. Stuff is being done. They drive the Fury down into like Earth's core or something, which is that stuff that we talk about with the Kayfabers out there who are working on their various Death of Superman comics. The fact that like the actual comic that came out was just a terrestrial fight on the streets of Metropolis with two superpowered beings that could fly and things. It's such a missed opportunity. I've seen a lot of artwork from the people who have been working on these comics, and I think they are making right on that.
Yeah, I always thought the move with Doomsday was it should have hit the Earth like an astral body.
Yeah.
Like it should have gone 3/4 of the way through the Earth. It should have messed up rotation, something with some impact.
Also worth noting that this Alan Moore stuff, and if you wanted to just grab it in these issue formats, man, X-Men Archives issue 2 through 6, it's a complete story. There is a beginning, middle, and end. It is a complete unit. Right here, this issue is where things start to go real, like, what the fuck just happened, man? There's these internment camps and food lines and stuff, and there's Megan. We haven't seen her in any of the Alan Moore issues up to this point. It's all that weird shit that will be built into Excalibur that we just kind of, like, clown on.
I've read so little Excalibur. I just never understood it. Like, it was one I tried, it was probably 20 issues in, 10 issues in, something like that when I started. It might have been a direct market, too, in the beginning. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was one I tried it and just couldn't make heads or tails of it.
As a kid, man, I was a giant Kitty Pryde fan, and I loved Nightcrawler. So, like, I had to give it a shot several times, and it was always, when money was tight, the one that I would sacrifice would be the mullet-headed Kurt Wagner in Excalibur. Just want to fuck with it.
I thought they blew it by not making it X-Caliber as opposed to EX.
I think that shit was like Chris Claremont trying to do like a what the hell was Stephen King's nom de plume?
Oh yeah, Richard
Bachman.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, Richard Bachman.
Yeah. Where he's like, you know what? I want to see if my chops can carry this thing over. It still kind of has the X sound in it, but it's not going to have the X. I think he was trying to do some Bachman-ish type gimmicks.
I want to imagine that's where the rift begins between him and Bob Harris. Damn it, Chris! I knew we shouldn't have done that.
Now look at these pages. You got a goddamn Mad Hatter. I swear to God, you see Grant Morrison still in this kind of shit in Doom Patrol comics.
That I forget Jim Jasper's character, your Mad Hatter character.
Yeah,
I see a lot of Grant Morrison.
Totally. In a lot of this stuff that like Doom Patrol was informed by Alan Moore's Captain Britain.
Yeah, I think so.
Still got those panel constructions. The way that, you know, when you see this in enough Alan Moore comics, you just know that he laid that piece out for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say Harvey Kurtzman, right?
Totally. There's another Doom Patrol page.
Yeah, big time. I was surprised going through this how much Grant Morrison I see in this.
For sure. Especially when it comes to playing with the superhero tropes and things.
It feels like there's just a ton of these ideas. Like it must have reflected maybe what Alan Moore was reading, thinking about at the time, something. Because a lot of these ideas they feel perfectly at home in a superhero comic, but they also don't feel like a lot of other superhero comics that I can think of.
Yeah. So this past week, spent a lot of time kind of getting things in order in the studio. And came across these comics, knew that Alan Moore did these Captain Britain comics, never really gave them much of a read. Cracked one open, and I sat down and read them all. Had to make an episode, and I plan on reading more of these Alan Moore comics that I've have, but I haven't really read more than 1 or 2 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were kind of hard to get. You know, they were like Miracle Man. Like both of these were tough series to put together as a kid. Like you knew they existed, but also like I never saw any of these things.
Totally.
And when is this even reprinted? I think in the 2000s. Like it's not like this is an old reprint.
Yeah, this is 95.
Oh wow, it is a lot older than I thought then. Yeah. I had no idea it was that. It went back that far. Makes the newsprint make more sense because I didn't know that they were doing any newsprint post 2000. But
right.
But nevertheless, before that 95 reprinting, like you've got over 10 years where are you going to find Captain Britain if it's not reprinted by Marvel here in the States?
Yeah, so just over time, like I plan on reading some more of the less known Alan Moore works. I grabbed that Halo Jones omnibus. I got the complete DR and Quinch, Brought to Light, A Small Killing. Over time, we've got to examine some more of those things. I think the masterclass, the BBC Maestro course, really inspired me to give some of his lesser known works a new, fresh set of eyes.
It's really interesting to having gone through that master class, to then look at comics like this, which this is a job. This is Alan Moore being a professional writer, and this was a job he got. And then how does he make it interesting for him? Because he talks about that in that master class, and you can almost see it, like explore all of these characters. Make sure they all have a place and a backstory and motivation and all this stuff. Exploring the world, the setting, like all the things that he talks about in that master class, you really see it in a book like this.
Totally, and the comics that are adjacent to this, you see how they're thin compared to, the work and craft that he's putting into the work. It's an education, man. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so we can notify you when new vids are available. Hit up our Patreon. Depending on the level, you're seeing these videos being streamed in real time, and you're getting all the videos before anybody else. But these videos are brought to you by the books that we make. Jimmy, tell the people what is out there and what is forthcoming.
Street Angel, Princess of Poverty is my next book. It'll be out from Image Comics later this spring. You can pre-order that one now. It's all different material than Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, but a perfect book set with that one. Plain Jane's my young adult graphic novel, available in print, and Hulk Grand Design, now available everywhere comics are bought and sold. And you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg to see more of my comics and art. See what I'm working on next. I'll be posting my latest comics on there. And download out-of-print zines and mini comics on my Patreon.
The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is the best book that I ever made, and it's coming out at the end of 2023. But you can pre-order it right at this very moment. Please do that. Over 140 pages of material that is not in the first 4 volumes of the existing Hip Hop Family Tree series. Red Room Crypto Killers is beginning. You can get those comics ordered at this point right now, man. Here's that Jim Rugg variant. Make sure you get your hands on that. Sketch cover variant. Peach Momoko's doing one for issue 1. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. There are 2 volumes of that out there. 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree out there. 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design. And WYSIWYG is out there. I'm serializing new Red Room comics on my Patreon right now. And that's going to be the first place where you're going to see the next projects I'm working on, so join the Patreon. All the links in the link tree in the description below this video. Jimmy, tell the people what else we have going on.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Perfect way to support the channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics. I'm kind of interested now in like Marvel UK.
Sure.
Like they were running an office with editorial in the early 80s,
Yeah.
all the way up into the 90s. Like some of those covers make me think of Liam Sharp.
Sure.
And, you know, you combine that with whatever other comics activities are going on in the UK. Like Tundra had an office for, I don't know, 2 years. You have Deadline happening in that late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s time, and of course 2000 AD. Like it's a fair amount of comics activity and pretty different from... I don't know, office to office, at least in terms of what they produced.
Yeah, it's true. And Marvel UK was, even in the 70s, like,
wow,
there was a Hulk magazine that is really the first appearance of a lot of those guys. I was kicking it with Glenn Dillon in Germany and asking him about, like, it was before I knew about Power Man. And I'm like, how the fuck did everybody have such talent? Like, I don't know their works before that. And he was like, dude, they all got their start in Marvel UK on like a Hulk magazine.
Yeah, it's so random.
Those fucking Warrior, and then there's Des Skin.
Yeah.
Doing Warrior and that kind of shit. And the guys who are in there, like Steve Dillon. So thankful, man, that like you could get those Eclipse reprints so cheap of like Axel press button and stuff, where you get to see some of that wild ass shit. Can you maybe like flip the umbrella part? Because I'm thinking it might be this. We're just dealing with some gloss, so we gotta. Yeah, that didn't do anything. Bless you, man. Maybe it's this. Like turn it up. Yeah, I think that was it.
It's so funny with the delay.
Yeah.
You turn it up, nothing happens, and then you see it's like a shadow moves across.
Right.
Like a cloud passing overhead.
So when I put together the thumbnail, it'll just be Arkham interview. Get it, Jimmy. We're going to be taking a look at a very recent Robert Crumb interview. No. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Going to be taking a look at a very recent Robert Crumb interview from late 2022 today on Cartoonist Kayfabe. But first, we got to let you guys know that the videos are brought to you by the comics that we make. This is a fair sample of our bibliography of said comics. Forthcoming, we have a bunch of stuff in. You know what? I'm just gonna start off. I don't like the energy. All right, hit it again. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Going to be taking a look at an incredible Robert Crumb interview today from 2022. But first, got to let you guys know that the videos are brought to you in a number of ways. We do have a Patreon out there, and our biggest supporters get all these videos before anybody else, and they are watching us record these videos live through a private stream. You can support the channel by checking out our books. Right before you is a bibliography of a bunch of stuff that we have out on the stands right now. And forthcoming, there is going to be in 2023 a Hip Hop Family Tree omnibus collecting 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree plus 140 pages of new material. That's more than a whole volume's worth of extras going to be packed into there. There is 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design, 2 volumes of Red Room, and here are the covers for the next Red Room comics that are going to be solicited for May. There's cover for issue number 1. It's going to have a sketch cover variant that you can order. This is Jimmy's variant cover for issue number 1, and this is the cover for issue 2. Big year 2023 for the King Kayfabers. Jimmy's going to have Street Angel, Princess of Poverty. It's a companion piece to Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive, and when you have both, you have all of the Street Angel comics that have ever been published to date. He has Hulk Grand Design out on the stands right now. Support that Treasury Edition comic and get it before it disappears. You're going to regret it if you miss it. 3 volumes X-Men Grand Designer out there, and WYSIWYG. Now, before us, we have the last provocateur. Even from his refuge in France, the comics artist R. Crumb still makes America's pulse race. We're covering this interview because, first off, we didn't know it existed until two people have sent us these magazines over a period of time. Scott Strong, the guy who has sent us this amazing Barry Windsor Smith material, hooked us up with the magazine the first go-round. This is the New York Times SNAIL magazine. For the date of September 18th of 2022. And then we recently got another copy of this in the P.O. box. So when you get two of these things, that bears some investigation for sure. And interviews like this, I like to read a good R. Crumb interview every couple of years and see where the hell he's at in his life and his career.
It'd be interesting to do a few of these over the decades. To see, because like his position does change quite a lot. You know, at this point, like he's now represented by one of the biggest art galleries in the world. You know, I forget who it was recently. I heard them say like he might be the greatest living artist. You know, like that status is different than it would have been 20 years ago, 40 years ago, even though he's very successful at each of those steps.
Yeah.
But the way the world sees him changes. Totally. So it's nice to see like I consider this current, you know, late 2022.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a couple months ago.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to see that snapshot of him at this point.
Do you have the Crumb TCJ book
No,
collection of interviews? Like I have it over there, man. But I probably have the scans or something. Could get those access to those interviews, and yeah, it would be good to go through a sample of these things. Off the bat, dude, in paragraph 1, they talk about the comic that we just looked at on the channel, A Short History of America, the 12 panels showing the sort of evolution of a little plot of land. You know, one of the things that we sort of left out when we were looking at that comic was that thing was a house, and then in about 6 panels, it just becomes like a little delicatessen. Like you can't even live there anymore. It's now a big part of the city. Eminent domain might have been a thing, or some rich developer bought it. But you know, that house, the evolution of just the house is there's a heartbreaking component to that piece, man.
Yeah, I just saw recently all the clickbaits, everything that comes across, and I saw one, and it was about like the last mansion in Manhattan being sold or whatever, or last private mansion or something along those lines, where it's like surrounded by these gigantic commercial buildings, and you have a residency in between them.
This is a fairly broad overview of Robert Crumb. The writer, M.H. Miller, definitely leans into verbiage from the documentary from the early 90s kind of a lot, which to me is a little bit unfortunate, because I don't care about quotes from 30 years ago. Like, let's talk about today. And on Crumb's bookshelf, you know, his to read pile, Because Our Fathers Lied, UFOs and Nukes, Gray Aliens, and the Harvesting of Souls. This reminds me, like, got dinner at SPX, Gary Panter was there, and was talking about like his alien theories and things, and was talking about either talking to Crumb about such things, or like Crumb was brought up, and like these dudes, they love that fringe, stuff.
You know what? I do too, and I often think about it, because he's like, I'm very interested in fringe things like that, but at this point, aliens are... Pick your news source. They're on every channel. They're on every, whatever homepage you go to. I feel like aliens have become mainstreamed. But that fringe thing was so cool because comics were fringe.
Yeah.
Especially comics that weren't aimed at selling Spider-Man underwear or whatever to kids. Like, it was fringe, an adult comic. And so, like, they kind of sat on the shelves easily next to each other. Interesting art, interesting writing. Like, all that stuff would exist in the fringe outside of whatever commercial concerns were sort of governing the editorialization of it.
Think about Ides' heyday, the big comic shop here in Pittsburgh. There would be the literature section, and it was all subversive literature.
Yes.
Like, there would be whole books on the occult. Like, that's where you could buy your anarchist cookbooks, hydroponics, how to grow, marijuana in weird conditions. Those books from Farrell House and Loom Panics and Paladin Press, like all those goofy books that could set you up to be a survivalist, and certainly will be putting you don't want to buy those books with a credit card.
Yeah, you get some of that paranoia later on in this interview too, where they talk about Crumb not having a cell phone and also like being concerned about his emails because they all go to NSA.
And it does. I mean, that's been proven. There is a thing called chatter though, which yes, they collect it all, but they don't have enough people to listen to it all. So you better not say the wrong stuff.
It's kind of wild to think this is where Crumb's head is at, though. You know, I mean, I guess in some ways it's the popular story of our world today, AI and all of these things, and it seems like, yeah, Crumb is interested in that stuff as well.
You know, I think about the time that these people grew up in with Richard Nixon. You being a young adult when Richard Nixon happens, and you could take a look at all the popular presidential approval rating. Like you could see throughout the history of America since they started doing the approval stuff. Up until Nixon, it was almost 50-50. No. Sorry about that. It was almost 100% of people were like, yeah, this is our president. Like, we got to get behind him. Nixon fucks it all up.
Right.
And creates that space for amazing paranoia because now you got shenanigans happening that is demonstrable. You got examples of, yeah, we will hurt our own. You got Kent State happening when these people are young, running around and stuff. Like, the stuff that they lived through and saw, it breeds its own version of paranoia, and the same as, like, you know, his parents probably had, like, from the Depression and you know, squirreling money away and behind bookshelves and things like that. Like, it's real interesting thinking about it in those terms.
Yeah, they even kind of touch on that. Eileen, Crumb's wife, is still alive at the point in this interview, so she contributes and they talk too. And she says, like, they moved to France in the 80s, and that it was not a good decade in the United States. It was like now, but not quite as bad. I feel like whenever you check in, like when you're born, when you become conscious of media around you, you can keep going back in history and find these parallels like you're just describing. Like all of the stuff that we are dealing with today, it didn't start this decade or last decade or the one before that. When I started getting underground comics, I would always be like, oh shit, this underground comic from 1968, same stuff that they're talking about in there is what we're talking about today. Like, it's so never ending, the cyclical nature of these things.
So one of the last straws, man, that inspired them to get the hell away was when Reagan starts to cut educational funding.
Yeah.
And at Sophie's school, there's no longer music or art classes. And imagine that, have two artistic parents who know the power and importance of art, and they're musicians, and now your daughter doesn't have access to that. And listen, man, I just became a owner of some real estate and paid school tax. Like, if that money don't go to stuff that I want it to go to,
yes.
Like, as a parent, I could see myself being real angry about that sort of thing.
How about this, though? For a little bit, Crumb volunteered and taught drawing at that school. Imagine if you were a kid that had Crumb as your drawing teacher.
Yeah.
What a memory. I want to hear from those people, man. What do they remember from that?
Imagine if that is even possible now. Like, for Crumb to do... He can't go to a damn college course. Phoebe Glockner is quoted in here, man, because she was teaching a course. She'd been a teacher in academia. We're talking higher education. We're talking 18 or older. And some little clowns are like crying about that Crumb got slid into the curriculum, and it, like, you know, whatever the new Gen Z buzzwords are for being offended at that kind of thing. And even Glockner, see, this is a very holistic interview. It's great, man, because you need some POV, right? And it's great that Linda Berry and Phoebe Glockner are here to just sort of bolster the work and achievements of the guy.
He said that, you know, that at the end of that little time teaching, like, the local preacher was driving students out of his class by saying, Crumb, agent of the devil.
Yeah.
So, like, that's, you know, way pre-social media. Like, that's a person, a local person, like, bringing that after you.
Yeah, and he's always dealt with it, man. Like, and that's where they get the quotes from the lady from Mother Jones magazine that are straight from the Crumb documentary. You know, in that documentary, Trina Robbins is you know, kibitzing about, you know, Crumb's portrayal of women and this and that. Here's something, man. I actually went on the website, and you got to actually contact the gallery for the price of this comic. So it might not be easy to get your hands on this. The Crumb Family COVID Expose, drawn by Aileen, Robert, and I think Sophie.
Yeah, I believe so.
Has some pieces, even though her name isn't mentioned on there. But you go on the website and I don't see even a page count or something. So it doesn't feel right to me. I need to see more information because I'm not gonna like pay $200 for an 8-page comic or something like that. But he's at that level now, man, where like that's how these comics are disseminated. They talk about it in here, and I'm like, I want to see that. Where was that comic? Who published that comic?
I remember it made some noise. It had to float around online.
Yeah, I didn't know anything because I'm so over, reading people's popular opinions. Like, we have the biggest comic website here on this YouTube channel, so like everything else pales.
I thought this tidbit, I didn't know this. George Lucas bought the Book of Genesis artwork.
That's fascinating because
$2.9 million.
The rumor was that it was Steve Wozniak. That's the name that I heard time and time again. But right here in print, man, it's George Lucas, who is another bearded, portly fella.
It's worth noting too. Like even the writer of this article says, at least according to a 2017 comic. So, maybe that's not where it ended up, or maybe it's changed hands since then. Who knows?
Leo owns a couple.
Talks about those sketchbooks. The famous story from that we always hear is trading sketchbooks for that place in France, and it says here he sells those notebooks for about $1 million each. If you want a crumb notebook at home.
Yeah, he's just saved his notebooks.
It's so funny too to see like name dropping, like Leonardo DiCaprio, and his father who was connected to Underground Comics. They get a name drop because why not, man? It's a New York Times magazine. Let's get some big names in here.
You mentioned it, represented by the David Zwirner Gallery. Get some quotes from the gallery owner, who sort of is promoting his guy.
And it talks about it, and we know this. People either love it or they hate it, and I feel like that's really like. You have to have that to be a certain level of success.
You do.
It almost feeds it fuels the fire for success.
Because it keeps your name relevant. It keeps people talking.
It's exactly what you were saying a minute ago about politics. Like the political situation
Absolutely.
is 50. It's got to be 50.1 versus 49.9 because otherwise, if it's majority's happy with this or that, there's no story. There's no clickbait.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot can come from stoking people's emotions and things. I mean, you could accomplish a lot.
His iconography includes every taboo imaginable. What a summary. Jeez.
They talked about, like, it's not in this interview, but Crumb mentioned it it might have been Comic Book Confidential, where, like, they created this opportunity, and the job for the first couple of years was to just, like, take things literally as far as they could possibly push it, down to incest stories and things like that. And then you kind of dial it back, and I feel like that makes so much sense, man. We're like in a medium that really got infantilized for 15 years up to that point with the Comics Code and the chilling effect of the Comics Code and the placidity of mainstream Marvel, DC, and then the other big comics are Little Lulu and Donald Duck and things like that. I feel like art history works that way. It's Cubism or abstract expressionism and all those different kinds of movements that happen. The underground movement is like an exercise in like, let us show you just fucking how far you could push it. And then you got your Hernandez brothers and your Clows and to like pick up the pieces and make something more rich.
I use this analogy all the time, but I always think of it as like it's a frontier. It's like you're mapping this stuff out, and those underground comics definitely were like pushing that frontier, and then you can fill in. Like
Beautiful.
the alternative cartoonists of the '80s can then come in and explore all that area behind them. That's like, this is all new area.
Right.
Let me stake my homestead here.
Yeah, they talk about it all, man. The racist portrayals of black people is certainly something that's going to follow a Crumb forever. I'm watching collections of Mickey Mouse cartoons from day with like the black and white shorts and things, and on these DVDs they have Leonard Moulton on there, kind of giving some context and things. But before there will be something that's spicy, something divisive, Leonard Moulton will have like a little intro bit to kind of explain context at the time and things. And then you like launch into the cartoon. So he tries to create a state of mind, like not making zero excuses for the material. But I thought that was noteworthy, and Moulton makes the argument like should we put these works into a vault never to be seen? He said, it's absurd. Like we can learn. This is stuff that we can learn from. It is art from a period of time, and same applies here.
Yeah, here we get into Alison Bechdel and Linda Berry talking about Crumb. Man, I hate to use the word defender, but it's literally the word that Miller's using in the text. But you see those cartoonists of that caliber weighing in a positive way. And
Right.
and I feel like, yeah, I'll defer to them. I'm happy to value both of their opinions. I bet if you're the writer of an article like this, it is fun because you do get to pull out both sides of this argument, just highlight like a who's who on either side.
Yeah, it's a this is not the kind of article that's just done in a weekend or something. Like this guy put in work. He talked about half dozen to 10 sources, down to Zwigoff and and others to put this piece together. Might have taken this poor bastard the summer to write it.
Yeah, and probably was some fun conversations that don't make it in here from talking to these various people. I love this quote from Linda Berry. She says that what R. Crumb gave her was this feeling that you could draw anything.
Right.
And that's amazing. And when I think of Linda Berry, like I feel like she's given that to so many people through her work. So it's kind of cool to see her identify that in another artist.
Yeah, totally. Phoebe Glockner talking about showing the comics in her coursework at the university that she teaches at, has taught at for 18 years, and the sort of pushback and the defense that she had to enact to just, with administration even.
Unbelievable. Phoebe Glockner's one of those people, like, I got that Dangerous Drawings book. For anybody unfamiliar with it, it's a collection of maybe 15 cartoonists from late 90s. Klaus, Chester Brown, Chris Ware, Phoebe Glockner. That's when I first came across all these artists and really added them to my reading list. We need to look at some of her work.
Oh,
she was
one of my
just
favorites.
in that Raw and Weirdo art show, and I just got the catalog, and there's some beautiful Phoebe Glockner work in there. Her background is a medical illustrator. I know we're going off on a tangent here, but she is so good as an illustrator.
Oh, incredible. It was her stuff that I gravitated most when that show came to Carnegie Mellon.
Yes.
Like she had some amazing pieces in there, for sure. But they're also talking about that stuff that you hear the very sort of emotionally charged people on your Twitters and online, your social medias, where there's this thing where people think that because you put something into the work, then you are the thing. Like I see people even who have a Nazi in their story who is the villain, who people make the argument online that you now create a platform for Nazis. Like you're basically Streisand affecting Nazism by talking about it and putting it out there. It is a fascinating, perfect time period to interview Robert Crumb for this kind of thing because, off camera, away from things on the record, almost 100% of the people that we interact with are like, the polls are going crazy, man. The left is out of control, the right is out of control. Like we need some stability, within the middle piece. But nobody's willing to talk about that stuff publicly because you just don't want the piranhas to come chewing up your body and then leaving you a little husk before they find the next thing to be offended by or want to tear down. So this is a perfect article, a perfect interview to have.
So they start on sort of his backstory and the ingredients that they lay out, and a lot of this is in the Crumb documentary. But it's a lot of Catholic school upbringing. It's a 20-year Marine veteran father. Abusive, it really lays out here are the ingredients of how someone, and it's not quite that simple, but you can, this was hardwired into Crumb at an early age, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. And just, I'm not comparing myself to Crumb, but the, super tough pops and stuff, and the little bit of positive feedback I got as a youngin was like, I drew him my pop sleeping, just for practice, and he saw it and was like, "Oh, that's good, boy." Like I never heard him say anything nice.
Yeah.
And then I drew him in all my comics a bunch for the first bunch of years, and I feel like that might be sort of connected. But you know, if you feel small, if you feel like worthless, you could either, you know, cause harm to yourself, or you can do your best to be productive and try to find your way in the world, try to get out of the situation.
Talks about comics as therapy for him.
A kind of a therapy, yeah, and that's an interesting conversation to have, because it's my thought that, like, it's not the subject matter that could be the therapeutic part. Like, you know, you have some like very, very dark subjects that people talk about, and like the process to make a comic is so time consuming that at what point does it become wallowing? You know, I think about you know, even that Barry Windsor Smith Monsters book, right? Like to spend 40, 35 years on something with that kind of subject matter, like is that therapeutic? Are you exercising a demon, or are you indulging in it or wallowing in it or something? Man, it's a when it comes to comic, like I believe in art therapy, but the comics part of it and the amount of time it takes to make a thing, depending on the subject, mileage may vary, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the reaction you get to a Crumb's work, right? The people who are defending it in here are identifying it that way. This is something that he's working through, something he grew up with, something he's, you know, processing, versus this is just exploitation, this is racism, this is sexism. And it's that way for all of this stuff. You know, like I don't know that Barry Windsor Smith and Robert Crumb have the same motivation in their comics making,
right?
Or how they're reacting to the comics that they make. You know, Crumb in particular, I just think of how much volume he has created. Like I picture him as he's awake, he's drawing,
right?
And that's a different thing than like, okay, I'm working on my next graphic novel.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting to hear him say it though, just because, like you say, we've grown. If you make any kind of art, that idea of therapy comes up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever side you want to come down on, I do think it's fun to hear the actual artist talk about it a little bit. Somebody of Crumb's caliber.
Do you have a point of view?
I don't. I think it varies on the person. It might even vary on the project, you know, depending on what that subject is. And I think in some cases it may turn into therapy when it was not the original intent. You know, you do come out in this stuff. You end up sleeping with it,
sure,
and thinking of these ideas. So inevitably it's going to go through your subconscious, unless it's something that's really just superficial commercial job. And, you know, how that is processed, I don't know. It can't hurt.
Personally, I think of it as it's a meditative state.
Yes.
Like it's a total Zen, like happy, comfortable state. Like I'm not like a torture artist mentality type person. Like it's when I feel my best, and it's not the cliche of like I'm controlling everything here. I'm literally chilling. My head's in a good place. I'm outside of myself a little bit, man. Not internalizing anything negative. Time flies. Good music.
I'm a huge advocate for like make something.
Yeah.
Spend some time, you know, if it's a hobby that you're spending 15 minutes a night, you know, writing, drawing, whatever, like I'm an advocate for that kind of, some kind of creative outlet. So is that therapy? I don't know. I think it's a healthy habit.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever word you want to put on it, go for it. But I do think like just making things is a positive. You're adding to the world, you know, you're adding to kind of the experience that we all share here. So it's like exercise or anything. I think it's a positive thing for your mental state.
Yes. Rest in peace, Aileen Kaminsky Crumb. She is a part of this interview, and we no longer have her. They call her a cancer survivor in here. So unfortunately, we just don't have her, and you know that's incredibly sad to me. But here on the channel, just organized a bunch of things in the studio. We're going to be looking at some of their comics, and he spent the bulk of the last big chunk of his comics making career, his output, doing jam pieces with her, jam comics and things. So we're going to put some of those under the microscope. Self-loathing comics, dirty laundry comics.
I'm looking forward to that, because it's another one of those unusual collaborations.
Yeah.
You know, when you think of comics, it's Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but it isn't always.
Right.
You know, and this is a good example of some collaborative comics where you've got writer-artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real fun. And she adds that quote, no artist who's honest knows why he does something. And I think that sums up that whole idea of, is it therapy? Is it something else? You know, one thing I do take away from everything I've ever seen about Crumb is this idea, like, there's a line here, he's still willing to make himself ugly and unlikable in his work. He's a character. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I've never met him. Even if I did, I don't know that I would know him. But Crumb is such a character, and it reminds me of somebody like a Stan Lee who, like, there's a very crafted character here.
Sure.
And a lot of ways, everything I say about Crumb is based on that crafted character. Like, I see a very edited version of Crumb. Mm-hmm. And it's unlikable at times, it's ugly, you know, it's all these things. But also, like, how much of it is character and how much of it is Crumb. Because I have heard from people that know him, that's not quite what you get. Even like Gary Groth in some of those interviews in the Comics Journal will kind of talk about him. I can't remember if it was at the Dallas Fair. It might have been at an event in Seattle, one of those art shows where a bunch of cartoonists were. And he's like pratfalling and fooling around with Bern Hogarth, you know, and stuff like that. And you see like there are these other sides of him. You know, I don't know that he's this guy that we see in his comics. You know, I think there's probably a lot more to him. But I love that idea that like we craft these characters and then that's who we are. And now that's the norm. Because everybody has their online aliases, you know, their personas. Used to just be Crumb and Stan Lee, and now it's everybody.
Yeah, some people, that's all they have.
That's
because
true.
They certainly ain't making comics. True. With all those Twitter fingers, man, you good to go?
Yes, I am.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so we can notify you when new videos are available. Hit up our Patreon. It is in the link in the description below, and depending on your level of support, you're seeing all these videos before anybody else. But the vids are brought to you by the books that we make. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, man.
Street Angel Princess of Poverty coming out later this spring. You can pre-order that now from Image Comics, and that will collect all of the comics that are not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, which is also available now. The Plain Jane's my young adult graphic novel, and Hulk Grand Design, both are out and available. And you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg to see more of my comics and art, to see what I'm working on next, and to download out-of-print zines and mini-comics.
The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming out in 2023. It's the best book I ever made, and it has 140 pages of art and extras that is not in the original 4 volumes. Scoop that thing up, man. Go to my link tree, put in your pre-orders today. I'm also soliciting the next round of Red Room comics. Crypto Killers 1 is being offered to your store right at this very moment. This is the copy of what the cover looks like for the copies that are going to be on the stands, but there are variants involved. Peach Momoko just sent hers in today. Here's the Jim Rugg by way of Rob Liefeld variant for that issue. It's going to be coming out on a monthly basis. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. There are 2 volumes of trade paperbacks of Red Room out there, 4 volumes Hip Hop Family Tree, 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design and WYSIWYG. Your support of our work makes these videos possible on a regular basis. But Jimmy, tell the people how else they could support the channel.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, all kinds of good stuff at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders. Will be on our way.
Make more comics.
I'm done to do another.
All right. What's next?
Unless you have an idea of the thumbnail that you want to do for that, man, I'm happy to let that be the one I record.
Yeah, that's fine. Did you sneak comics in my bag?
Yeah. Yeah, those are waiting for us. You forgot to take those things?
Did I forget? And this is taking me back to all of my comic book convention days.
It's karma. It's karmic retribution.
That's hilarious. All right.
I remember Paul Hornsmeyer was like sad when we stuffed a whole bunch of things in his box one time.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I remember playing that game with Evan Dorkin, and dude cut on quick. And I ended up going home with some extras from him that day.
That's funny. Try to be a little snappy with this one.
Yes.
you want to lock me in, Jimmy. Boom. If you want to hit that.
You ready?
Yes, sir. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
We'll be taking a look at John Stanley's Little Lulu comics today on the channel. But first, hit up our Patreon. Depending on your level of support to Cartoonist Kayfabe, you're getting offered all the videos that we record before anybody else gets to see them. And at this point, we have a nice cache of videos that are done that we haven't released to the public yet. Completely mitigates the Kayfabe effect. But the vids are brought to you by the books that we make. On the stands right now, man, I have 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room out there. It's the 10th anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, 4 volumes of that, but we are collecting an omnibus edition in late 2023 that is going to collect all of Hip Hop Family Tree, plus 140 pages of art and extras are going to be in that edition. It's the best book I ever made. Please support that. 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design, and the occasional WYSIWYG you're going to find out there. Jimmy has Street Angel Princess of Poverty. It's going to be out it's going to be out sooner than later. It's a good companion piece to Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive collection, and both those volumes will comprise of all existing Street Angel comics. Jimmy's Hulk Grand Design is out there right now. It is going quick, so if you see a copy, scoop it up because you might not get a second chance for quite a while. And without further ado, man, let's bring out our sacred scripture.
Love it.
A Smithsonian Book of Comic Book Comics. Has book in the title 2 times and comics in the title 2 times, so you know it's got to be gravy.
They knew what they were doing. This is before we had all our marketing terms of graphic novels and whatnot.
Yes.
Amazing.
You see from this very volume right here, man, it's a well-read book in the Eddie P. library, man. Well, I remember scooping it up at Woodlawn Flea Market when I was maybe still in the single digits of age. Read it incessantly, and it actually got me thinking, man, about like my relationship with old comics. And I don't think it exists that way for young people nowadays, because it's just everything's so accessible. When I would have access to even a reprint of an old comic, kind of by virtue, just signals getting crossed weird to my young brain, like because it's worth a whole lot of money, it has to be respected as like for the craft of it. Like it is your honor to get to read the Superman story from Action 1 or the Detective Comics 27 first appearance of Batman. So like the respect levels that I have for all of these comics in here is super elevated, but I defend myself by saying that it's all great fucking comics, and Little Lulu is no exception.
Yeah, I think my first exposure to like Little Lulu and John Stanley, there was a Tom Devlin comics journal that he guest edited and had all kind of different stuff. It was felt like a different issue, because they were covering all this stuff, and he was a big advocate of John Stanley. And now he works at Drawn and Quarterly, and they're reprinting tons of great John Stanley stuff. 13 going on 18, Melvin Monster, Little Lulu, Nancy comic books. So. Quite an artist, very respected, was a peer of like Walt Kelly was working at Dell at the same time. Like they would sometimes bump into each other at the office, before Walt Kelly goes off to do comic strips, was doing comic books, kind of a peer of Carl Barks. So quite this is original golden age, it's the 40s. Like these are the people that made comics really comics.
Yeah.
And John Stanley's in that mix.
Great text pieces before each of the comics that is discussed in the big book to give you that proper context, and it gives you some history on Little Lulu. It's always called Marge's Little Lulu. So like, but you never see Marge doing the comics or anything like that. So they explain how that comes about, and it's just a contrivance of. What is it, Saturday Evening Post or something?
Yeah, they were one panel, kind of like Dennis the Menace, like the Hank Ketchum Dennis the Menace versus like the Dennis the Menace comic books. And this was common. You would license this stuff. It goes on to become, Marge's Little Lulu goes on to become like a spokesperson for Kleenex and things, like it's used in advertising. Imagine those big contracts and things, like this is the Michael Jordan with Nike before they're going to like celebrities and sports people. It was comics.
and what's fascinating is it's the editors of the Saturday Evening Post. Once Carl Anderson's Henry goes off to become like a regular strip, they need to fill that void. So they just tell Marge, like, hey, can you come up with something? Here's a name, Little Lulu. Like, she basically says she draws Henry with pigtails and an upturned nose. And she gets the copyright to it. Like, she benefits from all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. She gets paid for...
That ain't your Marvel DC contract.
That's exactly right. Every one of these John Stanley Little Lulu comic books, she got paid too.
So...
and good for her.
Stanley's name's always associated with Little Lulu. And often it's the first comic that comes to mind with John Stanley.
It's his masterpiece.
But he only... You know, the line art that you see... is almost always from somebody else. He wrote and drew the first 2 of 150 issues.
But it's worth noting, like, when we say he writes these comics, he's not sending you a typed script.
Yeah,
this is an example
comics.
Of one of his pages. And Irvin Tripp, who drew a lot of his comics, said many of these you could almost print.
Totally.
You know, like, it's all there. The body language, the expressions, the timing, everything is in these kinds of scripts. So literally this is what he's doing as a writer. And whenever his editor saw this stuff, because he starts writing before he gets to Little Lulu, whenever the editor sees this, he recognizes this is a guy that we need to do more of this writing.
Right.
And so that's why you end up seeing John Stanley writing a lot of this stuff, writing in air quotes, because he's also doing almost pencils. And not just doing finished art, because they felt, you know, as a writer, as a story guy, he was more valuable. So it was like, well, we can get more stories from him if we have somebody else doing kind of the finished pass.
Yeah, yeah, and it's, you know, it's the Japanese Nemu kind of approach. This is a John Stanley strip. Yes. There's 4 different stories, I believe. This is the one that Stanley does the whole kit and caboodle,
including lettering,
and it's a good one, man.
Yeah,
like there's like fart jokes, I feel like here, man.
Yeah,
Tubby goes on the bus with an inner tube, and they have to like let the air out. You just hear psst, and you see people's hair like that. That's body humor, man.
And this is preceding your Charles Schultz Peanuts by half a decade. So this idea of like having kid characters, but maybe they're a much more complex than like a typical, I don't know, kid character would be. That's not something that Schultz invented.
I'm so glad we were looking at this thing, man, because my mind has been on the 12-panel grid. I think it's going to play a very important part of like my next comic works after Red Room, and to see what can be accomplished and to see what kind of air you need to make a story work is very instructive to me here. And this is the comics by one guy, and so he's packing. It's noteworthy to see just how much stuff he's packing into these comics. There's a couple of jokes a page.
Oh yeah, and you know, like they Tubby's inflatable inner tube gets deflated, and now he's too lazy to blow it up himself. They find a guy snoring on the beach to blow it up. But now that's such a dumb visual gag.
Yeah, but then he blows it up so much that they can't get the donut off of him, and the guy's still sleeping while the tide comes in.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the beauty of these kinds of comics is like nothing is like you could do anything.
Yeah, and he writes very much. John Stanley writes very spontaneously.
Feels like it.
I read a biography of him by the late great Bill Shelley, and it really gets into the nuts and bolts of how he worked, and that's one of his pieces, you know. And I think it gives life to these strips as a result.
It makes a lot of sense too, because it's not like there's like any great build or anything like that. It's almost like, okay, you have a circumscribed amount of pages. Go send Little Lulu off to go do this thing. See how much trouble she could get in, and then find a good way at the end to sort of get out of it. But in those terms, so it's very cool in terms of just spontaneous cartooning or whatever. But it's not. This ain't The Simpsons, where, you know, everything is leading to the last panel or something like that, man. And it's not even Carl Barks, where that happens a lot. Even though I guess he says that he was spontaneous with things, but there are times where I'm like, that just cannot be. It's too tight a story.
Yeah, some fun stuff in that biography is like these two crossing over, John Stanley and Carl Barks. They attended a comic book convention near the end of Stanley's life, and they got to spend a little bit of time talking craft together. So it's cool to have a record of that. Stuff
is just constantly happening. They say in writing, man, you like keep creating obstacles for your characters. So here's their bus fare, and it falls out of Tubby's drawers through the slats of the boardwalk.
Of course, first he falls, and then we see the ramification.
So now he has to go under the boardwalk, but how can we create more complication? Get his little tighty whities caught on a nail.
That's right.
So now he's naked under there, and now out comes the lifeguard. He goes in after him, and he gets the same affliction. So now we have 2 naked boys underneath there.
And of course, Lulu in charge.
Yes.
It's also worth noting, like you mentioned, a comparison to The Simpsons. These are comics that are definitely aimed at young readers too.
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind. Like there are a lot of differences from like the great comics and cartoons out there, and this stuff in particular, these are kids' comics.
Yeah.
And by the biggest publisher of comics in the world at the time.
Here's a pretty good gag right here. So the only clothes that she could find is a dress, and it's one dress. So little Tubby needs to get in there too. Little Lulu doesn't want to get left out, so now the guy's running in a dress.
6 legs.
With 6 legs. Somebody gets caught out in the ocean, and the lifeguard has to do some lifeguarding. When the lifeguard brings the dude in, talk about how pace when you little bastards or something like that, but the big guy that he brings out, who almost looks like Tubby,
yes,
grown-up Tubby, thinks he's talking to him, so now those guys are involved in some shit. And the way the story wraps up, Tubby, little hungry fella, there's like a section of the beach where the little missing children are, and they get indulgences. So Tubby can go in there. He just has to tell them that they're lost.
Yeah, it's man, the gag with all of them under the dress kills me, and it just feels like you cannot invent that gag if you're not sitting there writing with little drawings of these characters and just legs everywhere. And it's a classic cartoon trope.
Totally. I have to acknowledge, man, that John Stanley's Little Lulu is one of the only comics, and there's room on one hand of the amount of times that I actually laughed out loud from a comic. There's so much stuff I read where I'm like, oh, that's funny. John Stanley makes me laugh. And one of the pieces that cracks me up is this strip here, man, the 5 Little Babies, where you got little rich boy coming to town with like our little Bowery Boys characters, and is like, dude, all chicks dig me. I bet you I could get little Lulu to freaking walk like a dog.
Yes.
For me. They're like, oh, that's crazy, man.
Also, it's such a perfect setup for little kids. Like, this feels like something that, man, this is how I would have behaved whenever it was like me and my buddies in about grade 2.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a skill in and of itself. Like, John
really
Stanley,
is.
a proper man, like how do you channel that? So this little Wilbur fella, man, he's a king of kayfabe, so he's figuring out how to scam little Lulu.
Yeah, look at the cartooning too of him banging on the door.
Yeah.
Such simple cartooning, but perfectly effective.
He convinces little Lulu that he's missing his dog, and the dog is jealous. So if she puts on a dog collar and crawls around, the dog's gonna come running out. Oh yeah, you know what's fucked up about this collection is there's a page out of order.
There is?
Yeah, we're gonna get to it in a second. So little rich boy spots his homies, puts the dog collar on the chick, walks her within their visions, and then we flip the page, and these 2 pages are out of order. It's still little.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it all has to do with this like little girl. So that's a fucked up thing with this book that kind of bummed me out.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. So he makes good on his claim. You know, he was able to swindle her. But the little sister of one of the girls is like, you just fell victim, man. You got preyed upon. You got fucking little kid Me Too'd.
And then you see angry expression little Lulu.
Yeah, and she's gonna get her comeuppance, man. She's coming up with a scam. And these little boys, they're like frat boys, man. And what do we know about frat boys? They all swim naked in watering holes together. Because this is very gay right here.
That's hilarious.
So all the naked little boys are doing their Stand By Me gimmick, while little Lulu and her dusty little friend take all their gear, come back. It's cool because like we were playing with the 12-panel pages before. Now we're doing an 8-panel grid.
Sure.
So the
4
boys,
tiers.
Boys are all naked, and the girls bring them diapers to wear.
It's preposterous. Like, if I just said, "Hey Ed, here's the story,"
Yeah.
you'd be like, "There's no way that can work." And you read it, and I feel like all the motivations, like, it makes perfect sense. There's no point where it's like, "Oh, you got to suspend disbelief that Lulu's gonna bark like a dog or whatever." It's real fluid how they go from moment to moment.
It's an interesting, it's a cool writer exercise for Stan Lee to give himself, where it's like, okay, this thing has to happen. Now, little Lulu, how the fuck are you going to get her to do that? You got to think about that.
Right.
And the Pixar rule would be, you come up with 4 things, and you don't do the first 3, because those are the obvious ones. So now we're coming into the space of some of my favorite gags in all the comics we're going to look at here today. You do a damn human centipede mound of these boys on a little wagon, cover it up because they don't want to be seen by the homies. And they just start to fight, and elbows are,
of course,
ending up
once
in
again
places.
right in line with me and my second grade friends.
So little Lulu, see, this is the origin of Jackass, actually, man, because, like, how does the Jackass movie open up, man? They're all in that giant shopping cart going down a hill together.
That's hilarious. All you have to do is put them in diapers. That feels like it'd be right on point too. I've seen a lot of diapers on Jackass.
I think a couple of them might have been in diapers on that sequence, man. And look at this. It's the boys in the neighborhoods who say the word fellers and shit. So these are kids from the other side of the tracks.
Which is, again, the perfect setup. Like, if you're going to maximize your revenge on these boys, you got to put them in front of their rivals.
Totally. In the most vulnerable of states. But the little rivals, little Bowery boy kids, they don't even get that far enough to see who the homies are. They just see a wagon full of freaking feet. So many feet. They're about to pass out. And they keep yelling and telling the people of the neighborhoods. And then this panel's great because you see population of, like, inside each of those apartments. Very Crummish. Like, one of those pieces that you would see Crumb lean on in the future. So look at that amount of people.
It's amazing. Again, if you're going to do revenge, this is it. This is payback.
For the big reveal. Take off the tarp, and there you go, man. One of the most vulnerable things that could happen to a crew of young boys.
I also love at the end, they're like, why would Lulu do a thing like this to us? It's amazing the motivations. Like, it all makes sense when you read this stuff of, like, why these characters are doing what they're doing. And it's kid logic gets it started, and then it's just like kid responses, action, reaction. Very easy to understand. And I think about how, like, I get so frustrated at superhero comics most of the time because I have no idea why anybody's doing any of the stuff they're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. Almost everything in these makes sense to me.
Sure. Got a fresh one, man. Still playing with that 8-panel grid. Still 4 tiers, all that, man. There's a little boy stuck up on a pole, and the mother is freaking out trying to figure out how to get him down. This happened. We lived in Baltimore, man, in 3rd grade. We lived on a 3rd floor apartment, had a balcony and stuff, and there were pine trees out front.
The worst trees to climb.
My kid brother is in a pine tree high enough to look into the 3rd floor window of the kitchen as mom is doing dishes. If I'm in 3rd grade, he's 3 years younger. He's like in kindergarten, and he's, what is that, 25, 50 feet up?
Yeah. It's between 20 and 30 feet probably easily.
Yeah. And my mom was the greatest. Like, she's so good at the mom part of no-selling terror. But, like,
gotta stay calm for the parent.
Yeah. But she like, did not flake even though she wanted to, and coax that boy to get down out of the tree. But that's what this reminds me of.
That's hilarious.
Because it's the same setup,
Yes.
It's the same setup, and that little boy might be the same.
And one of the conventions that Stanley would come back to, you can keep going, is he is telling stories to this kid, this little neighbor kid that she would babysit. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, she decides she'll get him down if she tells him a story. And she wants to tell him one about a little girl, and he's like, no, I don't want that one. Poor little girl. He wants one about a rich little boy. Yeah. And so that's what she's going to give him.
Second one, man, of the selections here. But such rich imagination. He's able to, like, tap into this kid mind.
Right.
So there's the little rich boy. He's buying everything. He if he likes walnuts, he's buying a walnut warehouse. If he likes elephants, he's buying herds of them. And listen, he made a good attempt to try to buy the Atlantic Ocean off of Uncle Sam. And Uncle Sam says, no, man, I need it sometimes. How about a smaller body of water, Lake Superior? The boy gets mad and starts to smack the earth, smack America with a stick.
Take that.
and that. But he squelched that, man, by buying a freight train full of yo-yos. Still playing with that 8-panel grid. Dude, talk about the elasticity of the comic book medium. This is Stray Bullets format here, and look what you could accomplish with the same 8 squares. But he's playing with this caption motif, man. Lots of words on the page, and it just is this escalating thing. The boy keeps buying stuff. Little Lulu is like a poor type character, and the boy is a rival with her, doesn't like her, but he inadvertently keeps doing nice things for her without realizing it. He's thinking he's being a dickhead, but she wins all the time.
And develops a crush on him.
Yeah, and that's quite accurate to schoolyard love.
Little Lulu in love is very funny looking. We don't see her just happy very often.
The boy calls a damn dog catcher on her. She gets thrown in the pen, but she loves it because she gets surrounded by a bunch of cool dogs. And this is a cool piece of cartooning because it's like different breeds of dog. It's a whole panel full of different breeds of these pups.
Yeah, and if you look into Stanley's background, like, he draws all kinds of comics.
Yeah.
You know, his ability to draw a bunch of these different cartoon dogs, not surprising if you see what all he's done.
Yeah.
Ultimately, she ends up being told, go dig a hole and whatever, crawl in it, strikes oil. And what this sets up, we're going to reverse our roles a little bit because now the little poor girl is suddenly very, very rich.
Yeah, and it's so good, like, how she buys all the stuff that the dude likes. So now he's hungry because she bought the hot dog cart, but you don't even get to eat the hot dogs, but you could just like smell them or something. When his hair starts to get ratty, and look at how Stanley communicates that. She bought the barber shop, so she's giving him the rule like, no, you can't do that. And then look at what the boy turns into. It looks like your fucking Facebook profile picture.
Yes, it does.
Heck of a mullet there. It's all ratty and mangy. So just he's a rich boy but can't buy anything, so he's as poor as anybody. And then that's enough to get the little boy down off the pole.
Very angry that Lulu's double-crossed him in this storytelling.
Yes, and I think you need the last panel to explain exactly what the heck happened there, because it's just like, what are we getting at there? So how did you get him to come down? Easy, mother. Little boys don't like little girls to get the best of them, even in stories.
Yeah, it's that's kind of what he does in all of these stories.
Yeah.
That's the Little Lulu motto, is her getting in some kind of competition with usually with the boys in the neighborhood, and then it's on. It's war. We're just one-upping each other.
Got a detective comic in this last one, man.
Amazing.
Little Tubby becomes the spider, I believe.
This must have been, if you're thinking 40s, like the spider being a pulp character may have still been around. Like when he says the spider spins again, like readers might know the spider.
Yeah, and then when I was reading about that in a text piece at the beginning, right? And I'm like, okay, is he going to have, like, look like Green Hornet and have a little domino mask? No, he looks like Mexican or something.
Just a mishmash of stuff. And this is all based on Lulu's dad shaves off his mustache.
Yeah. So Tubby is suggesting that Dad is doing that to prevent himself from being recognizable to the feds. So he contrives all different ways to get access to the house to search for a bunch of money that might have been taken from a bank or something, because I guess Dad works at a bank.
That might be my question if I could talk to John Stanley, is tell me about Tubby's costume here.
Right, yeah. Like a damn
it's very bizarre.
And a Charlie Brown shirt.
The mustache, like it's just all over the map.
Yeah. There's always like Keystone Cop type firemen in these kind of comics.
Yeah, the old gag of like having the firemen come to get somebody out of like a tree or second story or whatever was, rescue a cat from a tree. Did this used to happen? Was this a common thing in life?
Certainly is in pop culture of the day.
It sure is.
So he mistakes them for like the, well, I guess it is the cops. Cops just have a big ass ladder, and Tubby comes running out. No, he's not the bad guy. He's cool. He's innocent. The cops ain't even. They're like, kids should be seen and not heard. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they're not interested in him at all.
And when old Mr. Lulu gets back in the house. By the way, this is also one of those pop culture things. Whenever somebody has something hidden, or like somebody sneaks into somebody's house to look for stuff, and everything is completely unturned.
Yes.
And all over the place, like no hint of stealth.
No,
whatsoever.
You know that somebody's on to you.
Yeah. The spider spins again. There it is, man. Little Lulu. We had this channel for damn near 5 years, and this is the first John Stanley Little Lulu that we showed off on the channel. I don't think it'll be the last.
No, and I would recommend, this is something that I had read, Ed, when you were on Manga Quest. This was something I picked up and finally got to read. Bill Shelley's authored a number of these biographies of cartoonists, and I recommend any of them. All the ones that I've read have been great, and they're giants. Like most of the people he's written about, they're big cartoonists in history. So
yeah, rest in peace, Bill Shelley, man. Like I got to know him just a little bit, and to me, he's like one of those key figures that preserved comic book fandom through his Hamster Press. Book collections of Fandom's Greatest Comics, where you get to see, Klaus Janson stuff that he did before he was a pro, and Frank Miller and guys like that. He created an encyclopedia of all the names, the big important people of comics fandom that I refer to on a regular basis when we do these.
Massive contribution.
Yeah. Rest in peace, man.
The other place that you may find little Lulus at home if you haven't read any, and go read these. Like we talked about Calvin and Hobbes, and I said read them at night before you go to bed. You'll be in better moods. I'd say the same thing with little Lulu. Dark Horse reprinted a bunch of these in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
They can be spotty to find, but you might find those on a shelf in your local comic shop, and if so, they're very affordable copies if they haven't been marked up for being out of print.
Yeah.
But, just cheap reader copies is what those things were, and guess what? They blew out. Like people bought them all because they're great comics, but you can still find them because there were a lot of those printed.
Yeah, they don't make them like they used to, man. And this is just one of the great contributions of comics that informed many of the great creators who would come afterward, from the guys in the undergrounds to your Hernandez brothers and Dan Klauses and people like that, man. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new vids are available, and got to make you guys aware of our Patreon. Hit the link in the description below. Support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel through the Patreon, and if you support us at the highest level, you're getting all the videos before anybody else. And if you're up early enough, you're watching the live stream recording session as we put these vids together. Completely mitigates the Kayfabe effect. Those of you out there who are looking for those Dark Horse books, they're all getting snapped up at the cheapest prices by the people who are watching us stream this at this very moment. But the vids are also brought to you by the books that we make. So Jimmy, let the people know.
Street Angel, Princess of Poverty is my next book. It'll be out later this spring from Image Comics. It'll collect all of the Street Angel comics that aren't in Deadliest Girl Alive, which is also available. So the perfect set for fans of Street Angel. Plain Jane's, my young adult graphic novel, is still in print, and Hulk Grand Design available everywhere books are bought and sold. And you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg to download out-of-print zines and mini comics, see more of my work, and see what I am working on now.
I'm compiling what's going to be the best book I ever made. Is going to be the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus, coming out later 2023. Support it right at this very moment, man. We got to go to press reasonably soon, and I want this thing to be massive. It collects 140 pages of extra material that's not in the first 4 volumes. That's more than a volume 5 amount of artwork and extras in there. But I'm also soliciting my next round of Red Room comics to your comic shops right now. Crypto Killers is the name of this next season of Red Room comics, the 2023 season. There's my cover for The Stands. Here's Jimmy's variant cover for that edition. We have sketch covers for this first round, and just for a little seasoning, there's the cover for issue 2. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. Each of these stories completely self-contained. There are 2 Red Room volumes out there in existence right now. There are 4 Hip Hop Family Tree volumes out there, 3 X-Men Grand Design, and 1 WYSIWYG. What else do we have out on this? What else do we have out there, Jimmy?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Another great way to support the channel. Given those marching orders, we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
All right, I'm going to charge up my joint. I got one more to do. I'm saving my favorite one. for last.
What's your favorite one?
Gonna look through like those Seven Seas mangas and just kind of talk that. I see that being a reasonably quick one because it's just a broad overview. You know what, Jimmy? I would suggest.
Did you see this? Did you find a copy to look at? That Kevin Eastman?
That's a very expensive comic.
Is it?
Yeah. It's over $100, but I read it, online.
It's out there.
Yeah, it's really wild, and it's one of those great things where like, he's playing with the house's money, so he could just make whatever kind of comics he wants, and that's what he wanted to make,
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I was going to say, Jimmy, is let's shoot, when we do these like shoot interview things,
Yeah.
I think it's best that we shoot the commercial here
Okay.
to show off the bibliography and the new stuff.
Yeah.
So like, let's not tear your stuff down until you have that to support the Eric Larson video later. I'm just going to make a fresh tea real quick and I'll be good.
You guys, Judge Dredd, Heavy Metal Dread, Simon Bisley's warm-up for Batman Judge Dredd, and what a doozy it is. There's been a couple of editions of this book, and we'll get into that, I suppose, as we look at this one. But it's a fun book.
Yeah. Okay, that's the one that I was looking at.
Did you switch those?
This is your iPad?
Did you see it was playing? I was gonna say just leave it run.
I got I started to put my stuff over, and it's also the battery. Because I'm airdropping stuff, and I don't want it to take the thing off. But that is cool. I'm sooner than later. I think I'm gonna get the newest iPad Pro.
Yeah.
And you could get it up to 2 terabytes of storage, and they
really?
Yeah. It's expensive, to get that one.
Man, that's a lot.
Yeah,
you must be doing a ton of video work on iPad.
They said it's a movie studio in one, and the render is quick. They say so. I'm really, I almost just went out and grabbed one. But all told, it'll be about $2,500 because you want to get the pencil too. You want to get the.
Of course.
But I think it's gonna factor in for my next comics, for the reference materials of having stuff like the Fleischer cartoons, access to that stuff right there. Let me just pour my shit.
It's a remarkable tool.
Oh, dude, it is. I mean, I edit my videos on it. I fucking do my roughs. like I did those like comic reading things where I cut the video, like cut artwork into the shit. It's paid itself back in crazy amounts. Yeah, my one reservation is an issue that I've had with high technology, like Wacom, where like the Wacom tablet I had, the first Wacom tablet I had was so perfect. It had like a little scroll wheel, so you could go up and down on the canvas and all that, and it was like the smallest version because there's like the 3-4 levels. So I bought this one that the smallest version. It's the same stuff. And it took so much good functionality out of it and put it to the one that's bumped up, And it's like, that's some punk shit. And it also feels less substantial too. So like because I've had this fucker since this is the first iPad Pro. The battery life still lasts 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing tool still. And I just fear that if I plunk down the loot on this like $2,500 setup with 2 terabytes data, if it just fucking dies easy and sucks.
It's a weird dilemma. Like I have that with various equipment that's getting like really old.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to need a new laptop. My laptop's over a decade old, but it's never given me a problem. And I just fear like all my other computers have, you know what I mean? Like it sucks the idea of like, I'm going to upgrade and then what?
Yeah, I always have two laptops running.
Yeah.
And my what I use for media has now lapsed. It does not get supported anymore.
That's where I'm like, I feel like I'm one upgrade away from,
So
lack of support.
I'm due to just like have one because I've never I've never lost a day's work. Like I've never had like a failure. Like I back up consistently. I've never like been down because the computer got fucked up because I always had something extra, and I just gotta keep that energy up. What I fear is my printer because I love my printer so much.
I hear you on that. I have the similar printer. I think it's a slightly different model, but same idea. And it was so cheap. And at this point, like I've more than gotten my money's worth out of it. I'd hate to replace it because it's been good too.
Right.
But also like it's I don't know, man. It feels like it should be on borrowed time.
yeah, that's totally how I feel. And like that'll be where my bottleneck happens. For some reason, the video's not pulling up. Okay, there it is.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. The tech that we have to maintain, the hardware stuff. And I don't know that there's any workaround. I don't think that's dependent on our process at this point. What are you going to do? Send your artwork to the publisher?
Yeah. So my thinking is we got an hour.
Okay.
All right. And we got 3 videos to do. Because I would love to have a half hour to set up. Good.
Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that we do have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon now available. 3 different levels there, and the top level, King Kayfaber, gives you access to this actual recording. We're having a conversation with the King Kayfabers right now as we speak. The various levels do include access to the videos early ahead of time, give you a leg up on the kayfabe effect. If you see a book before everybody else sees the video, you'll be able to get it at the best prices. And we have had videos where books just completely disappear or the prices skyrocket. So check out Cartoonist Kayfabe's Patreon and see if one of those levels fits you. Also, Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the books that we make. You can see our bibliography here. I have Hulk Grand Design, Street Angel Deadly Scroll Live, and The Plain Jane's available in print now. My next book is Street Angel Princess of Poverty. This will be out later this spring from Image Comics, and it will collect all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadly Scroll Live. So a perfect set to complete your Street Angel collection. Ed Piscor has Red Room, X-Men Grand Design, Hip Hop Family Tree, and WYSIWYG. Huge announcement on Hip Hop Family Tree. There's an omnibus coming out later this year. You want to pre-order that one now? 140 extra pages in that. So an amazing book if you've missed any of those volumes, or if you're looking for the perfect gift for a friend, that is the place to start. And Ed Piscor's Red Room Crypto Killers. Issues 1 and 2 are now available for pre-order. These will be coming out in a couple of months, but you can see the cover previews here. This is the standard cover. There is a sketch cover that's coming out. This has been long requested, and it scares me to think of what will be done to these sketch covers. I am contributing my set of variants, including issue number 1 here. You can see an homage to Rob Liefeld's Youngblood, one of the important creator comics in my life. And here is a cover for Red Room Crypto Killers number 2. All right, so on to today's video, Judge Dredd, Heavy Metal Dread. And the reason that I scooped this book up, Simon Bisley doing about half the artwork in this issue. This was done late 80s, early 90s time frame, so before Judgment on Gotham, the Batman Judge Dredd crossover that Bisley painted. See our video on that one to see more great Judge Dredd, Simon Bisley artwork.
Yeah, before he came to the States, really.
Yes, very early in his career. Yeah. It was actually commissioned by some music magazine, is where these stories started out. And eventually they find their way into the magazine, the Judge Dredd magazine, and controversial because of their violence. So think about that for a minute, everybody at home.
Yeah, you know, like the British, they have like the video nasties movies that are on that list, and it's stuff that we consider placid and like not that big of a deal. So like violence, you know, it's the whole shtick, right? Like titties and stuff, cool. Violence, no. And we're the opposite.
Exactly. And so when you get a guy like Bisley who's leaning into the violence, you see a chainsaw and the results of that chainsaw coming along. So the violence is here from the beginning with that toothbrush splattering blood on all of this artwork.
Totally.
They're all somewhat music themed, not the best stories. You know, these stories don't stand out to me at all. Like, I'm here for the Bisley art.
Yeah, totally. And it's
pulling his nose off.
Yeah, it you know, it's abuses traditional comics making, like establishing shots, backgrounds, things like that. Like that's all out of here, man. You're drawing ghastly, crazy imagery like that right there. That's a burn victim face. Like I know the reference to that. I feel like, man, like that. I think that's a real human.
Yeah, it's funny. It looks like a name might have been removed here. This is a reference to the Who's. Tommy Who is your name in the title, and I don't see it here. So it makes me wonder if that was something that maybe someone said, you know what, you're not reprinting that name.
There is a story in the Future Shock documentary where he put the name of a dentist, and the office was adjacent to the 2000 AD offices. So like the chances of this guy seeing it was like so good. And they had to like destroy plates and scratch films and all kinds of shit to make sure that this never comes out. Like, I wonder if it's that. But dude, what we're getting here is cartooning in paint.
That's exactly right.
And you just never got much of that before. You would have your Sienkiewicz, but he would be playing it kind of straight.
It's the piece that I love in Bisley's work, because you get this stuff, this guy's head just exploding as he's playing. They call these pinball, like, they're love machines, illegal love machines. And so, like, he's building to this climax, and you see a lot of head trauma throughout this collection. But that's what you get that is missing everywhere. You know, if you look at background supporting characters, they're all caricatures and cartoons. Totally. And it's really a great element whenever you juxtapose that with this kind of like painted graphic violence next to a cartoon. These are like Looney Tunes for our generation.
Yeah, totally. And, Bisley, he's such an interesting guy because he is just before my time. It all works out. The math of it. Like, you would have been the age of like the kids that were fucking with the Bisley stuff when I was like a little dude, and those same kids were the Tank Girl heads and the Jamie Hewlett cats. Like it's just a few years older than me. Like the kids who had Voltrons were the Bisley kids, and the what you call it, man? Who else did I name? The Jamie Hewlett joints.
Yeah, and that's what you see here, because today we get access to Jamie Hewlett and Simon Bisley all over the internet. Like there's no distinction. But back then, it's like I'm buying Marvel and DC off the rack, and then you see this kind of like Batman treatment. Like this stuff, taboo isn't even the right word. Like we look at bootlegs and we get excited to see like weird versions of these known licensed characters, and that's what you were getting. This like complete lack of respect for the institutions. Feels very British. I love this character design with this big metal teeth jaw.
Trap jaw.
And of course, biting Batman's head off.
And it's got a hinge, like it's total cartooning stuff, man. What did Brian Bolland tell us about the Judge Dredd bike? Easy to do, front view.
Front view. Not a lot of perspective on that bike. This became a pretty iconic image. I feel like that's been used on covers and maybe even posters.
Versions of it also. It became a motif where people would do their kind of profile, big gun Judge Dredd image.
Reminds me so much of the Mobius Batman stuff we looked at.
Yeah.
Just complete, like, I don't know about disdain, but there's no respect shown for those institutions. And again, just violence, shooting through a head, face blowing out the back of the helmet, eyes just bouncing free.
This one looks older.
This is not Biz.
Oh, okay.
This is not Biz. And the other, John Hinkleton is the other artist who's highlighted in this. This is like...
but it has like Brendan McCarthy shit in here?
There is a Brendan McCarthy story, yeah. This one is Colin McNeil. So there's a couple of these stories that are not our two main artists in there. It looks pretty good to me.
They always put their A-listers on Dredd for sure.
This is hilarious. Blows up this guy in this wheelchair, right? He lands without a head, and then the head falls on top.
Yeah,
with
it's genius.
A plop.
It's genius, man. We got Lemmy Kilmister, man, keeping with our musical themes.
Yeah, Johnny Biker, and you can almost see Bisley kind of working through certain styles and doing some different stuff, getting more confident.
You see this in Sienkiewicz.
I saw something online where Bisley talked about figuring out, and I forget the artist he credits for, but figuring out that you almost do a skinny Judge Dredd and then you pad him out in those big boots and shoulders and armor and gloves and all those other accoutrement that makes Judge Dredd. But he said, like, if you have muscles on top of that, it's just too much. It's like, it's and he's right. Like, I've tried drawing Judge Dredd that way. Yeah, so it's kind of neat to see him working through that. This is some pretty... if you showed me just this page, I would not guess Bisley.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat to see him doing that, too. Even this one, pretty wild for a Bisley piece.
You could just put your mind in that place where this is, like, coming out for the first time and just how it fucking blows people's minds.
This, again, not Bisley.
Yeah, where you create a situation where you do get these Biz clones.
Dean Ormstrom. Ormston.
So it's still a different
artist.
guy,
Yeah.
And then you have your Angus
Kinda
Mackay's
like
and
how
stuff.
he looks. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting style on its own. Wouldn't surprise me if he ended up doing a bunch of 2000 AD because it kind of feels like it'd be right at home in that. And then this is the John Hinkleton. One of the notes that I found on this, I think it was Douglas Walk is doing like the Judge Dredd reading. Is that right?
Oh, he's done that in the past.
So I found one of his articles on this story or on this book, and he was saying like Hinkleton has said that he did one of these on LSD through one of these, but not clear which one. And as we flip through them, let me know if you figure out which one, although that's a pretty good face with just...
That's a bad trip. That's the brown acid.
It could be.
He took the browns.
It's a wild style, though. This is somebody that I did not know about until this book showed up in my mailbox, and it was like, kind of like this stuff, too.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible the amount of musculature that he's putting in a face. Lot of muscles that I have not seen before.
There were these Titan reprints that would have this kind of color and stuff like that, and there would they would do it right. They would have like a ball end or Mick McMahon up front, and then it would have these like adjacent dudes. And I think I have some of his work.
Yeah, I love seeing like these guys who do their own color. It really allows for something. Like this, I can't tell if it's markers or paint that's going in there.
Yeah.
But combined with the black and white line art, that's a pretty radical style for something that would have been like early 90s.
I have to imagine that the Judge Dredd magazine had gloss paper to support this kind of like, because like imagine that dark blue on a newsprint, especially that 2000 AD newsprint. Like it would might as well be black.
Yeah, hard to imagine that working. How about that for like a bee beard? Would not want to draw. If you told me any of these stories were done on LSD, I'd be like, sure, not going to argue with you, because it's just, they're out there.
This represents like the second, third generation Judge Dredd artists. So you have all that baggage that you have to rise up to and try to show improve. So you got this great history to build on, and you got to bring your A game.
This is Judge Dredd going undercover in a fat suit in order to like infiltrate this gang. Just covered in flesh and blood. So over the top. Great character stuff, though. All of these pages where you see him inventing a bunch of characters, like, look at that for just pure drawing, where, like, you're having these faces overlap at different angles to get three eyes and stuff on a face. very far out there. And I think clear whenever I say it is hard to tell which one he's tripping and drawing. Because every one of these has some kind of like outlandish imagery, you know? I don't even know what that creature is that's being dissected and sewn back together, autopsied in front of everybody. Some of this does feel like it could be 2000 AD, though. You know, maybe the coloring wouldn't work, but the line art sure, I think, would.
No, totally. Yeah, I'm sure these people...
It has that sensibility, you know. We talk about that sometimes of, like, the Marvel UK stuff, feeling like it's not Marvel house style, and I feel like 2000 AD has a certain house style. That's just ridiculous. Speaking of, like, the size of your shoulder pads and how far you can push it. Would have been amazing to see some of the Image dudes tackle a Judge Dredd with that kind of, like they have some of that language.
It makes no sense to do this.
Love this image.
Just because of, like, rights issues and ownership stuff. But I always thought it would be fun to, like, do the American invasion of 2000 AD and, like, and do our own, like, deconstructions of the Strontium Dog and Judge Dredd and stuff, but I would never bother because they own it. Like,
yeah, right.
Like I'm a comic maker, so I have to own the stuff that I make.
When you think of all the bootleg stuff that we've seen, it's hard to believe there's not a fun doujinshi bootleg of 2000 AD.
You know, they probably...
And we're back to Bisley, by the way.
They probably copy protected it by making that fucking costume so hard to draw.
It does seem impossible.
Like, what a bitch of a costume. Drawing eagles in 3D, basically, on a shoulder. Get the fuck... And then that chain and the badge. Nothing about the Judge Dredd costume is easy to draw. That helmet is weird.
Yeah, totally. Man, you see pieces of this stuff, too, where it's like... It's totally... This is that early 90s Bisley. This is the stuff that I would be scooping up in Lobos or in the Batman Judge Dredd crossovers. And I just love it. I love that you can find, like, more of this work. Because I've seen pieces of this in various places, but to get it all collected in one book is awesome. And there have been a couple editions of this book, so it's not an impossible thing to find. This one was, I think, $20, so it's not an outrageous book to afford either.
King Kayfabers are getting the cheapest copies.
This is cool. This is Bisley again, but here it's line work with that like painted color on top, which is possibly my favorite Bisley. I like his line work a lot, and you know I like his painted work too. But this is almost your best of both worlds. And look at this for like. Again, back to the caricature kind of stuff. I think of stuff like the Bill Sienkiewicz Dune adaptation.
Yeah.
Where like he's really exaggerating and playing with these forms. And you kind of see it here. And the cartoon element, once again, that you mentioned in the beginning of this video, it's on display in most of these stories with Bisley. It's almost part of the DNA. It doesn't feel like a gimmick that he's bringing in, but just a major part of it. And Walt Bisley presents Bimba. So maybe the weirdest story in this collection. They save for near the end here.
I get the sense that when he pencils a page, that it is so loose.
Oh, I bet you.
Because the expression in the ink line is major. Is that a dickhead?
Yeah, it is. I think we actually see it go off at some point.
It erupts.
Keep an eye on his head, Ed, as this story progresses. But look at this for, you know, like, it's just a real mashup stylistically. It makes me wonder what's going on. Somebody made a comment on one of these posts about how it's like two markers that he's coloring the backgrounds, and there you go. Yes. Fulfilling his destiny, if you will. Totally out there. And then here we go, man. Ballad of Toad McFarlane and Brendan McCarthy here now providing the artwork. And I don't even know where to begin with this story. There's like a magical frog that impregnates Toad's parents, and as a mutant, they got to keep him hidden. But whenever he becomes a teenager, he just can't. He's got to get outside of the house, and of course, can't have mutants there in Mega City 1. Way over the top.
You know, we got to do skin on the channel.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Maybe even have McCarthy join us to do skin. How fun would that be?
It would be good. It'd be really good. And John Hinkleton, the other artist in here that's featured, writing kind of this end piece and talking about, being in a book with Bisley and stuff. So, pretty cool. I was very happy with this collection because I was looking for Bisley and found some other stuff. And I actually brought a John Hinkleton.
Oh, I have this comic too. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I thought I'd do a quick bonus because I don't know where else to show this, and it's one of my favorite Texiera comics. So expect 3 minutes here, everybody, of us looking at a Punisher with Mark Texiera at the top of his game.
We will look at this again because like Tex's Punisher is a thing. So like just show this.
Fair enough. I copied this thing so many times. Yeah. I love this kind of approach that Tex was bringing, and man, I think it's a sympathetic creator to Bisley. This is coming out of that Neil Adams continuity studio direction. I don't know that the two inform one another, but boy, did they have a place in my stylistic head. You know, my triangle, my Scott McCloud triangle of styles, Bisley and Tex were pretty close to each other, and I grabbed books from either one when I had the chance.
Tex was my favorite artist for a good clip there, man, when it was like Wolverine, Punisher, Sabretooth.
Yes. Yeah.
Even Ghost Rider also.
That's where I first saw him.
Like when he was first doing his thing, man. It got that Marvel Abrams book that shows the kayfabe photos of him doing a splash page, and I'm just like, who is this fucking guy? And when I started to see his works, I'm just like, this is killer knockout comics.
Well, that's a future date then, Ed, because I would love to look at a little more Tex art on this channel, and I think our fans, if they're here this far, they're gonna dig Tex too, if they whether they're longtime fans or new to him.
No doubt, man. Let's get out of here, man. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new vids are available, and we have a Patreon. Hit the link in the description below. You're going to be able to support the channel that way. And if you're a King Kayfaber, at that level of support, you're watching us record this video live, and you are able to get all the videos before anybody else. But the vids are brought to you by the books that we make. And right now, I have the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus coming out 2023, man. 140 plus pages of art and new stuff. It's not in the original 4 volumes. It's my best book that I've ever made. I hope you support that book. There are 4 volumes of the regular Hip Hop Family Tree, 2 volumes of Red Room, and this is the cover to the new round of Red Room comics we're doing. Crypto Killers issue number 1. That's my cover. That'll be on the stands. We got sketch covers. Jimmy did his variant cover. There it is right there, man, by way of Rob Liefeld. That's the cover for issue 2. And Peach Momoko just delivered hers this morning for Red Room 1. So get your hands on that. 2 volumes of the trade paperbacks, 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design, and WYSIWYG. Jimmy, what books you got there, man?
Street Angel Princess of Poverty will be out later this spring from Image Comics. This is my next book. You can pre-order this now wherever you buy books. It will collect all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive, which is still available from Image Comics, back in print after a little time missing. So add that to your collection. Hulk Grand Design and the Plain Janes are my other books that are available and easy to come by right now. Please add those to your collection if you haven't already. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see lots more of my art and comics, download out-of-print zines and mini comics, and see the comics that I am working on next.
So what else do we have out there, Jimmy?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
All great ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Keep these videos coming to you on a daily basis. Give them those marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Jimmy, you know what, man? I feel like we got one more. We're gonna have to come back and just like blast mine out at the end. Because I really just need that like 20 minutes to set up just for potential error and stuff. It's right here if that's what you're looking for. Here, put it down. Let's lock it in. Man, it took that lag.
Yeah,
you know what? I bet you with the new iPad, it can like receive internet data faster too, or something. Good to go?
Yeah, man, hit it. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Want to remind everybody that we have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon now. 3 different levels there give you access to our videos early, and at the highest level, the King Kayfaber level, you can actually sit in on our recording sessions, have a conversation with us while we are recording these videos every week, get a leg up on the Kayfabe effect, and track down the books we talk about before everybody else is going after them. So save yourself some money, and in some cases, save yourself the ability to actually find the books. Sometimes they disappear if it's something a little bit rare. Cartoonist Kayfabe is also brought to you by the books that we make. Ed Piscor's Hip Hop Family Tree, big omnibus collection announcement just made. Going to collect all of the Hip Hop Family Tree books in one volume with 140 extra pages. You can pre-order that one now. Get it in time for the holiday seasons. The perfect gift, and if you're missing a volume, it's a way to read it all in one place. WYSIWYG, X-Men Grand Design, and Red Room are Ed's other books. And starting in a couple of months, Red Room Crypto Killers will be out and available. You can see the cover to Crypto Killers #2, which you can pre-order now. You can see my variant cover for Red Room 1 based on Rob Liefeld's Youngblood one. There's a sketch cover coming up, and there's your standard cover for Red Room Crypto Killers #1. There's also Peach Momoko that'll probably be making its debut in public very soon. My latest book, Street Angel Princess of Poverty, is available now for pre-order from Image Comics. It collects all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Alive, so add that to your pull list. Hulk Grand Design, Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, and The Plain Janes are my other recent books that are still available in print wherever you buy books, so add those to your collection while you can. So, Ed, we are looking at a Kevin Eastman outlaw comic. I think it's safe to call this one an outlaw comic, from the early 90s, published by Fanico. This is such an interesting project in a lot of ways because it's a standard black and white comic book. Eastman is doing everything on this book. Written, illustrated, and lettered, you can see by Kevin Eastman. It is black and white, so that's all the credits that you need for this. Tundra must be publishing at this time period. Mirage is still publishing at this time period. It's kind of bizarre, and I'm curious, like, why does Kevin Eastman go to another publisher whenever he's got two publishers? He is a publisher of multiple lines. So interesting that he chooses yet another publisher to work with.
And this ain't the only one. There's that Zombie War that I think is a Fanico, and I think probably all Fanico books are probably outlaw. Like I don't think I ever saw anything with a Fanico logo that made me feel like it was subtle. Right.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre publisher because the stuff that isn't is like the Daredevil Chronicles. They do a couple of those licensed Marvel books. How do you convince Marvel that you're safe to give a license to if these are the books that you're publishing?
Those come out first. Like those are old as hell.
Gotcha.
And this shit is like the 90s developments, the gore shrieks and all that. Noteworthy piece. If you get that Daredevil Fanico book, you will see a Spain Rodriguez Daredevil drawing in there. Man, which to me is like a highlight of comic fandom.
One of the things I love about this book is it's that early 90s period. I think it's 93 is your publication date for this. And that is, that's that height of that speculator boom. Like books are selling in big numbers. And so this is Kevin Eastman's response to sort of like this peak comics time period in a lot of ways. And wow, it's out there.
Yeah, like I don't think of it in those terms at all. I think of it as like a guy who's playing with the house's money. And he just has this weird idea because like I don't think there's any ambitions that this is going to be benefiting from any kind of issue 1 buzz of the speculator boom or anything like that. And this is a very expensive comic to get your hands on, which would suggest that there's like a couple thousand of these out there, not too many at all. But as you saw on the cover, like it's a wild approach. Bisley is out. Sienkiewicz has been doing shit for years. Dave McKean is doing the Sandman covers and stuff. So, like, Eastman has always been kind of a seeker. Like, he's always played with different methods and materials, down to those first comics collection covers where he's playing with friskets and airbrush and using a lot of tools that your average cartoonist just would not play with. But I think you could see those influences of his on this cover. And so now he's in a position where he's like, I could just, like, express the wildest idea I want to, and that's infectious.
And it is very wild. This is some demon spirit through this almost Ted McKeever like urban landscape. And what we have just seen is guy yelling Molly, right? Gonna find out it's his love, and she is shot dead right in front of him and dressed to the nines. Man, this is a dark side of town.
She's an OnlyFans chick.
That's right. And
drink every time he says Molly, by the way.
Yeah. This demon, of course, is going to play a role in this story. And the story's not the clearest story. There's
very
lot
confusing
happening here. There's a time thing that confused me in reading this. But ostensibly, that demon is going to infect various characters. And I believe that is Molly's fate, because Molly is killed at one point and comes back to life. And I believe it's compliments of that demon.
Does not help himself as a cartoonist to have the man protagonist and the main chick have the same haircut.
You're right. That is not a good, that's not Comics 101.
Right, like here's your girl, because it has titties, and then here's your guy. So like that's one of those bits that aids to the confusion. And, it's wild, and this is fully unfettered comics. I feel like as a creator, you got to get some of these out of your system sometimes, man, to just like make effective other works. Like Gilbert had Birdland.
Yes. Reminds me, calls to mind The Crow.
Sure, absolutely.
Which would have been around that time period with Tundra publishing The Crow and stuff. You've got to think that's art that left you already named a few people like the Bisleys, but I imagine James O'Barr is somebody that Kevin Eastman took some stuff from. And we're seeing this demonic possession of, you go from sex to violence then, as characters that are lovers being then discarded and dismembered.
I'm realizing that the only cartoonist sex scene I've ever seen on film is Citizen Toxic Avenger #4, with Kevin Eastman and Julie Strain in there, and he motorboats her like at some at some like news event or something like that, man.
I love some of the like the non-sex stuff that's in here, where it's almost just this fallen city. Like even this staircase.
He's good at the decay.
So much splatter.
Yeah.
Black and white media that we're splattering with.
So Zuli is out. Like they publish Zuli a little bit, and Puma Blues. Like his influences, like he wears them on his sleeve, and I think it's really cool. The art is very, very raw. I've always been inspired by his art and watching it grow and develop. And to me, this is a real middle stage, because like where his stuff is at now in 2023, it's all congealed and coalesced into like the Kevin Eastman style. And I do think it took him a while, because he was playing with a lot of different influences, from like Von Baudet to Richard Corbin early on. And then he started really getting influenced by his peers who were coming up, like Biz and Zuli and those guys. And now he's like firmly created this Kevin Eastman style with the little ticks and the little noodles, which is so much clearer than what you get with this material. But maybe this is the stage you have to enter first.
It looks like he works really fast. Like looking at some of this stuff, it's almost like a 24-hour comic or something, the way these marks are laid down. I also think it's interesting to see this minus the duo shade, because it's almost like he's still going after that gray as a value on these pages. He's just not doing it with the duo shade, but rather with the splatter, with the cross hatching. You see a million of these lines that at times almost look like that duo shade, these parallel lines that create the gray hatching.
Yeah. A lot of story on the pages.
It also made me think there's a lot of cinematic influences in this. It feels like this could be a B-movie script.
Totally. It feels like a Trauma.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And that stuff was real popular at the time, man. Like Trauma would get some distribution on the Cinemaxes and stuff. Like there would be like special almost like festivals on Cinemax, where it would be like, Trauma Week or something, right. and they would play 5 or 6 different movies that they distributed. That's in the area, that's New England based filmmaking.
Right. And you mentioned Julie Strain, who was Kevin Eastman was married to for a long time, that was in movies. So like I'm sure that's in his head, all these kind of influences and stuff. And you get still a lot of the great Kevin Eastman kind of little storytelling and layout here, where we're crossing between like half the face is Demon, half of it is Molly. So like the visual storytelling is still here and prominent. Man, his page layouts are so interesting to me, because it's not obvious where they come from. You're not seeing 6-panel grids in his page layouts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still Ronin, like something like this, you would see it in Ronin with like those very skinny landscape panels.
I also wonder where he's living that he's pulling this kind of urban landscape out. Because this feels like something that's contemporary to me.
Right.
Like it feels like if you were in LA now, you might be drawing something like this. Maybe it is like New York in the late 70s, early 80s, not sure if he was around there, but it feels like, there are these like urban histories of these moments, right? And I wonder if what he's pulling from for that. Some Trauma qualities in some of these urban landscapes. The, what's the Vietnam Trauma distributed at the Combat Shock?
Yeah.
Kind of feels like that early 80s kind of New York landscape.
Lloyd Kaufman's wife was the New York Film Commissioner.
I did not.
That's probably how
convenient.
How you could get some cheap locations and stuff.
It's also neat to look at this, because some of it looks so fast, and yet I look at a spread like this, and I don't see any shortcuts. He's drawing a lot on these pages.
Yeah.
Even like filling out your X-rated books rack back here with titles and title lettering and treatment and stuff. Like, he put a lot of effort into this comic for sure. And ultimately what we see switch around is our hero from page 1, and kind of a novelistic piece in a comic to repeat that splash page again. But
we're catching up to modern day.
Exactly. And ultimately, he's going to be where the demon finds another vessel to occupy.
It's so fun because, like, in our conversations with Eastman and Laird, they mentioned that, like, the undergrounds were such an influence. And as soon as Peter Laird says that, Kevin Eastman holds up a bunch of undergrounds. And, like, that's what this is.
It is, and it has that third ingredient, like a heavy metal or something injected into this.
Sure, but, like, you know what I was thinking was like a Skull comic or something, like a Richard Corbin side of the underground comic space. And you know what? We need this every now and then. Like sort of like doing the Red Room thing is like, let's get out of academia. Let's get out of, like, that stuff. Yeah, it's fun to go to the Miami Book Festival, but let's use the pamphlet comic for what it was great at, man. And that's subversion, and that's trash, and just communicating goofy ideas, because you can't do it anywhere else. Netflix isn't gonna fund shit like that.
Yeah, I don't think Infectious is going to be adapted anytime soon on Netflix.
It could.
But 32 pages, man, cover to cover of Kevin Eastman work.
Fantastic.
It's so awesome to see it, because a lot of the stuff that you would find outside of the Turtles' work at that time period would be collaborative stuff. Eric Talbot, Melting Pot, Simon Bisley. It's kind of neat to see him do a complete package himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, those comics are super, you know, they're rare morsels at this time. I was thinking, like, man, did these guys even draw, you know, 500 pages? And it's like maybe just a little more. So it's great to see the stuff. I had no idea about this comic before this week, man. So it was fun to put that under the microscope, to give it a shot.
I'll say this too. You mentioned this is kind of a pricey book.
Yeah.
It's a book I found in a 50-cent bin.
Nice.
So I don't know how many of those are around. We're not far from Albany, New York, so maybe these are a little heavier in the Northeast than they are around the states. But it's possible you find this. You
totally.
know? I had no idea what it was before I opened it up. I was like, Kevin Eastman. Sweet.
Yeah. You see that cover, and then it's like, yeah, I'll fuck with that, man. Yeah, then you open it.
Because I see a million of these covers, and they're anthologies.
Totally.
And maybe, you know, you hope for one good story in there.
Right.
So again, to get 32-page comic, that's thrilling. I wish all of my favorite cartoonists would have this 32-page black and white one-shot in their past.
Yeah, you know, the one that comes to mind immediately is that one called Gasp or whatever. Mm-hmm. It has that John Tuttle bin with the guy smoking through the cancer, the tray coal or something, and it's like, okay, give me 50 pages of that. You open it up, some bullshit.
Yeah, that happens a lot more than not, but this is one that delivered, so kind of cool.
Almost never found a Fantaco comic that I don't like, man. Like, it's all interesting.
Yes.
Good to go?
I am.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, tell the people what's out there, dude.
Hulk Grand Design, Street Angel, Deadly Squirrel Alive, and the Plain Janes are available now. My next book, Street Angel, Princess of Poverty, will be out later this spring from Image Comics, and it will complete the Street Angel collection. So it'll go very nicely with your Deadly Squirrel Alive book. And if you don't have that one, order both. Have a complete set of Street Angel comics. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see all of my comics. You can see original art, download out of print zines and mini comics, and see what I am working on right now.
All right, man. Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is coming out in 2023. It's the best book I ever made, and I hope you support it. There's going to be 140 pages of extra material that has not printed in the first 4 volumes. So that's your reason right now to go scoop it up. It's probably going to be around $50. It's almost the price of a volume. Red Room is starting up again. Red Room Crypto Killers is being offered to your local comic shop. These are what the covers look like that your store can get their hands on and put on the racks right now. You can order the sketch cover, and I'd love to see what kind of art you're adding to that, man. This is Jimmy's variant, man, by way of Rob Liefeld. It's my cover for issue 1 right there. Go to your local comic shop, support our books, keep these videos coming on a regular basis. There are 2 other Red Room trades out there, 4 volumes Hip Hop Family Tree, 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design, and you'll still find WYSIWYG out there if you look good and hard enough. Plus, I have a Patreon where I'm serializing the new Red Room material. Jimmy, what else do we have out there?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Great ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders. We'll be on our way.
Read more comics.
Boom. Let's do this. Let me go get that shit.
Let me record a commercial here.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just send that over to you then.
I don't need it. commercial.
Oh yeah, I guess you don't.
Yeah, it's just to stitch into your Larson video.
Well, you know what? I'll just use my beginning then.
You think that'll work?
Yep.
All right, guys, we're doing a fun overview of the 7 Seas manga books that got some of the best reprints of like all the titles I always wanted to check out. There's one I don't have that just hasn't come yet. I ordered it, but it's like media mail. Media mail from somewhere, not close, because the shit is like taking like 2 weeks or something to come.
Man, media mail, you never know. I ordered 2 print-on-demand books recently, and it takes a little over a month for fulfillment of these 2 books. And don't you guys worry, they will certainly make their way onto Cartoonist Kayfabe once I get them. But man, shipping, printing, all of those things. Whew, it is it's a different world out there these days. It's one of the trade-offs when everybody is making their own books and coming from all different sources. Dude, they're talking a little bit of working on screens and how they end up double tapping to undo and trying to pinch zoom on real paper.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, and it's almost like a phantom limb or something that you feel like you can reach out and do this stuff.
Totally. Yeah, I do that all the fucking time. And then you know, usually I got people here with me, and I look over to see if they saw what I just did.
Yes. It's so funny.
I got Space Battleship Yamato still on the way.
This is one, by the way, that may bite me because I did not order these before we recorded, and I assume that there'll be at least a few King Kayfabers that are going to want to add some of these books to their to their order list. So hopefully it's not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm all ears for like how best to sell this. Because I'm just astonished by like I don't even know how to fucking. You know what I think? Here, take this off.
You want this off?
Yeah, I'm just gonna like lay it on top. Look at these fucking things, man. Amazing.
They're very nice books.
Yeah, they found a format that is classy and tasteful, and they just stick to it, which is totally fine. And just keep them coming is what I say.
That's the way to do it.
Keep them coming.
Wow.
Keep them coming, please. And this will be the thumbnail, I think.
You all ready?
Yeah, sure. Is it locked in and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Going to be taking a look at some astonishing manga reprints here today, but first, got to let you guys know that we have a Patreon at the link in the description below, and our biggest supporters get to see us record these videos ahead of time, and they get all the videos before anybody else. I think this is going to be a highly kayfabe affected episode, and they're getting first dibs on the cheapest cheapest copies of all the books that we're going to be talking about here today. But the videos are also brought to you by the books that we make on the screen in front of you. You are taking a look at a healthy bibliography of what we have out there today. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree this year with a giant omnibus collection of all the volumes, plus 140 pages of additional material are going to be included in that set. 3 volumes X-Men Grand Design, 2 volumes of Red Room are out there in stores right now, with a 3rd on the way. These are the covers for Red Room Crypto Killers issue number 1. There's Jimmy's variant right there, my newsstand variant, copy of the issue 2 cover. Jimmy has some great stuff coming on in 2023 as well, man. Hulk Grand Design has hit your stores and is going fast, so get your hands on copies as soon as possible. Coming soon is going to be Street Angel Princess of Poverty, collecting another giant sample of Jim's Street Angel comics. And if you have this and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, you then have all of the existing Street Angel comics that are out there in the wild today. Plain Jane's is another book that Jimmy has out there that you need to get your hands on. And without further ado, Jimmy, I don't even know what to call this video, to be honest to you, man. I come back from Japan, and I'm fiending for some Go Nagai, man, like to actually be able to read this stuff. And I'm rummaging around online, and I see that there's like a complete set of the original Devilman that's out there from this company called 7 Seas Entertainment.
These are such handsome books. Not just the Devilman, but this whole 7 Seas selection that you've got laid out here. These are hardcover books. They're probably 6x9, 6x8.5, something along those lines. They're absolutely stunning as books. They're so nice.
Here's the thing that fucks my head up, man. I never heard of 7 Seas Entertainment, and I've never seen any of these books in a comic book shop. None of them. So I get the Devilmans. I'm loving the comic. It'll be, Devilman will have his own episode sooner than later. But then I'm like, well, what else did these guys put out? Because fuck it, like I want to read more classic manga. And the cool thing is this is like Generation 2 or something. You got your Tezukas and your Ishinomoris. But like Go Nagai is like the first big hit cartoonist for Shonen Jump, man. It's Mazinger Z. It's not Devilman. That was never a Shonen, a Shueisha piece. But nonetheless, you get that, man. In Japan, I can't even find a Monkey Punch comic. So to get an actual Lupin the Third, and the way they do it, because I think that it doesn't necessarily have as many volumes as Golgo 13 does, but I think there's a lot.
Yes.
So play the hits.
This is a nice way to expose yourself to a classic like this as well.
Check out the approach, too. The art is nothing like I thought it would be. Like the Lupin the Third cartoon is very wiry and has like a lot of distortion and stuff. So, dude, this is my first exposure to Monkey Punch.
Yeah, that's wild. Very different than what I expected. There was just... somebody put together a clip of anime of Lupin the Third with Jim Cornette, in that their outfits are the same.
Yeah, it's so good, man.
Which is incredible to think about.
You want the green coated Lupin the Third? That's the Hayao Miyazaki episodes that he directed. We talked to Ishinomori. Here's 2 versions, man. You got the biggest book of them all. I think it's nearly an 800 page. It's over 800 pages of Kamen Rider.
This is amazing. I love biker comics, and this is a badass biker comic.
We called it Masked Rider in the early 90s when the Power Rangers hit. But, like, dude, you could read it all,
This is a beautiful book, too. And I mean inside, too, not just the book itself. The format of these books is all the same. They're all this hardcover, same size. But the comics are amazing in Kamen Rider. And you mentioned that second generation of manga.
Yeah.
50th anniversary edition on the top of that book. Kind of speaks to that, and it blows my mind to think of this as a 50-year-old comic.
Totally. We're some old boys at this point, man. Power Ranger fan, like I said, man. He created the whole Super Sentai, idea This is pretty cool, this Go Ranger thing. Because it's black and white comics, right? So you see the different textures.
Good example of it.
Yeah, to communicate each of the different colors of his guy. So like one's a zip, one's a hatching going one way. You leave two naked, one with some cross hatch to communicate the different colors. But dude, I've been down this deep fucking rabbit hole, just reading all kinds of classic manga and strips and all kinds of different weird stuff. This is probably the next one on the list. But here's the thing, guys. I don't know anything about the Seven Seas Entertainment Company. I think they publish about 600 books a year. And like so much of their stuff is not my interest. Like I'm into the classic material. I like to see drawings on paper. You know, I'm not into digital art and stuff. It's like music, you know, like you like acoustic guitar, or do you want fucking, you know, Fruity Loops computer created music, you know? Like I'm going with pen on paper. That is my energy. These books that you see before you can find remaindered for next to nothing. You know, I did not spend more than $120 on all of these books, and there's still one on the way. We lost Leiji Matsumoto just 2 weeks ago or something as of this recording. The Captain Harlock comics that we got in the States were those shell game Amerimanga Malibu comics that they just had some dudes around here fucking make. No, man, I want the Leiji Matsumoto OG comics. And guess what? You get 3 volumes of this stuff, you get it. And 2 of these volumes together cost like $20.
That's incredible to see. Yeah, these are really good comics, as you say, Ed, like classics.
Yeah.
Which I love, because it is hard to kind of... We don't have a canon in comics, but we do have stuff that you know is classic, stuff that's been influential to generations. And the ability to read that stuff inexpensively, man, it's important because it's part of the DNA of comics. Especially if you're a maker or a fan, this stuff is going to be informative to what you're looking at today. Because it's in almost everything.
Yeah, it's true. And it's such a different point of view. It's such a different relationship with the audience. There's way less talking down to the audience. Like Captain Harlock, it's kid's cartoon or whatever. But the sort of journey that you go on is just less insulting to the reader than your average kind of Marvel DC comic, even from, you know, Stan and Jack period.
It's funny to think about that in terms of the production whenever you look at these books and it's an 800-page book, 3 volumes of several hundred pages each. You would think it'd be the opposite and it'd be full of bloat, but it's almost like the serialization and the fact that you got to perform in each of those serials.
Yeah. It
doesn't give you that room.
Right. Yeah. And it's put your imagination down on the table. Now, the one that is on its way is Space Battleship Yamato, also known as Star Blazers to the old heads here in the States, which, same deal. You got like your Kamiko, you know, Ben Dunn, you know, American manga type aesthetic. No, give me the Matsumoto stuff, man. Give me the real shit. So that's on its way. And like I said, these things, they don't show up in comic shops. There's not much promotion being done on these things. They publish 600 some books a year. I don't know what their big outliers are. But any of the classics that they put together, I'm just scooping them up. And because nobody either, you know, their promotion is lacking, comic shops don't, you know, have much room for a footprint of an 800-page Kamen Rider comic, you can get these things for a song right now. That'll probably not be true, you know, minutes after this video goes live.
Yeah, I hope it's not true, because these are good books to get into circulation.
Absolutely, man. And look, man, you got like not 1 but 2 Go Nagai series. You got the OG Cutie Honey in here. I would like the Mazinger stuff also.
We are spoiled. You know, the fact that you can get these things for $15 or something, whatever you paid for them. How lucky are we?
But here's the thing: you can't take it for granted, because we have no idea how many copies of this stuff is out there. So, like, I've been in that mentality of, you got just grab it. You know, like Tom was the one that said, you know, it hasn't been since the 1800s that so few books of each title have been published, and it's kind of true. You see these like who knew that just these Taiyo Matsumoto comics that we've been scooping up all these years. Like, we're sitting on a treasure trove of Matsumoto comics that are worth thousands of dollars at this point. Why? Because they're fucking out of print and everybody wants them. And that's just going to keep going. I've been wanting to read a good, edition of Devilman. From what I hear, that there's some speculation, or people are saying that, like, there are 3 different iterations of the Devilman collection, and this is like one of some lesser version or something like that. Where he would, because he's the creator and he gets to do so, he can. Park my little bookmark. Over time, he's stuffing in strips that weren't in the original serialization, stuff that he did a little bit later and things like that. But Go Nagai chose to do it this way, so I'm very happy to read that. I just finished volume 1 last night. Going to read volume 2 over the next week or so, and we'll do a proper Devilman video. Very wild comic, not anything like what I thought it would be. But I mean, what was the first version we had? We had this like really shittily colored translations that Verotic did, Glenn Danzig, and they're affected comics, because like, Danzig, he's just like, oh, it has devil in the title, man, 666, I'm gonna publish that. We have to now trust his translation for like what that stuff is, and something tells me that he might have got a discount on his translator.
How bizarre is it to think of that? Like, that's most Americans' exposure to Devilman.
Right.
It's so bizarre.
But it's one of those things, man. You saw those tapes at Suncoast Video. You saw the Cutie Honey tapes at the Suncoast Video. Go Nagai has always been like, he's like the Raw dude, and I don't mean Raw like Raw magazine. I'm like Raw like less polished, or you have your Tezuka that's like Disney and your Ishinomori. But he's got kind of that style, but he'll show fucking dicks coming and demons with like titties that are eyeballs and just like the weirdest, most kind of perverted stuff. It makes sense that like he's making comics all day, every day. And so his like imagination and his like sexual repression like shows up in the pages, and it's like so far out and weird and wild. But I'm having a ball with these comics. Manga is where my head has been for a minute. I'm already itching to get back to Japan sooner than later. And I just want to make everybody aware of these pieces here. I think I got most of the classics up to this point. I don't know if anything's forthcoming. If any of you guys have information, please put that in the comments, because for the most part, I might be supporting a lot of these classics as they put them out, and I hope they continue to do so. It sounds like they have a big body of work and some good funding behind them if they're putting out 600 books a year. But there's just a nominal amount of those that are these classic joints, and I want to make everybody hip and aware to these so that they just are incentivized to keep making more.
It makes me so curious because there's that company that was putting out Tezuka stuff, and I think they were doing it through crowdfunding, but they did like several volumes. I don't think it was Vertical. It was another group.
Yeah.
And then like this Seven Seas, not a company that I've heard their story. Like Viz, we know Viz. Viz has been around for decades. They're out there. But these other companies that are doing major manga translations and publishing that I know nothing about, why do I know nothing about them?
It's true.
Like, talk to us. Talk to the comics people, because, like, there's a lot of comics interest in this material.
Totally.
It's not, there aren't two markets. In a weird way, manga is almost taken up when it used to be like alternative versus mainstream. And you can only like one, and you gotta hate the other one. We are almost in that area now with, like, like comic books in America, and then manga is like two separate things. I think there's a lot of crossover of people that read both. I read both, you read both, most of the people I know read both. So I want to hear this. I want to know what Seven Seas is doing and what they've got coming up, and this is a significant body of work.
Yeah.
How don't we know more about them? Yeah,
and I'm so excited about it. I'm so happy to share these comics, but the information is limited. We can't know everything.
That is true.
And we got comics to make ourselves. So any extra info, if there are any websites, or I've been to the website, and it's very it's overwhelming. But if there are forthcoming books, put it in the comments. I'll make sure to scoop them up before disseminating that information for myself, of course. But
order first, then share it.
Yes, these are this. What you see before you represents nearly a dozen comics I've been wanting to read since I was a little kid. And now I have that opportunity, and I have to thank Seven Seas Entertainment for making that possible. But as a fan of comics, I do fear that this might not continue if people don't support the works, because like I told you up front, man, I got these all remaindered for like less than $20 a piece. And if a book is $30-$40 when it comes out, like, I just don't see how that could be a sustainable business model over a long period of time. Support these books, check out some classic manga, and fuck, let's get more. I'd love to read Kamui Den.
That's true.
You know, there's so much stuff. I would love to have a translated version of Ryu, the strongest man on earth. You know, the Kaze Shinobu dude who was helping Go Nagai on Devilman and Mazinger and shit. Like, we need more translation. It just creates a better awareness and education for English-speaking comic book makers, who you now have something new in the palette that you can season your own comics making with. And I feel like I'm going to add these sensibilities to good health in my comics moving forward. And I'm just so freaking thankful that this stuff exists. Support these comics, man. Let's keep this stuff rocking. And you know, the next classics that Seven Seas puts out, I'm gonna be all ears for sure.
I feel like this is a public service announcement video, Ed. Like letting everybody know these exist and at affordable prices. Like, man, don't sleep on it.
Yeah, it's just like, I just couldn't believe that this like bounty of riches was out there and I had no idea. You know, like, we're in our microcosm, we're doing our thing, we got our heads down making stuff. Cartoonist Kayfabe is the biggest comic book website out there, so like, it's not like I could go there for information.
It feels like, and this happens several times a week at this point, but imagine if you had this stuff in 1992. If just this collection showed up on your doorstep, what you'd be as a cartoonist.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, like these are you know, sacred relics.
They really are.
You learn a lot of stuff about comics making looking at this material, and we could keep talking about it all day. But we should get to making comics ourselves, Jimmy. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new vids are available. Got to let you guys know that we have this Patreon, and like I said, man, these books are probably kayfabe affected. Our King Kayfabers get first dibs on grabbing these things on the aftermarket or on the local comic shops, and because they're getting all the videos before anybody else. So support the channel by way of our Patreon, but support the Kayfabe channel by buying our books as well. Jimmy, tell the people what you have on the stands and forthcoming.
Street Angel, Princess of Poverty. That is my next book, out from Image Comics later this spring. Pre-order that one now wherever you get comics. It will collect all of the Street Angel comics that are not in Street Angel Deadly Scroll Live, which is also available now. So the perfect 1-2 punch, perfect for your collection to have all my Street Angel comics in one easy place in a very attractive set. Those books are designed to sit nicely next to each other. Hulk Grand Design and the Plain Janes also available. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg to see lots more of my art and comics, download out-of-print zines and mini comics, and see the comics that I am working on now.
Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus Collection is coming out in 2023. Thank you guys so much for pushing that so high on the Amazon rankings. I want to keep that energy going. Support the book at your local comic shop when it's available there. All avenues are welcomed. Like I said, we're collecting all the Hip Hop Family Tree volumes. There's going to be 140 pages of additional material in there, which is more than an extra volume's worth of art and extras. Red Room is going to be starting up again in May. This is the cover to Red Room Crypto Killers 1. Peach Momoko just sent her variant to us this morning. This is Jimmy's Red Room variant for that issue by way of Rob Liefeld. There's going to be a sketch cover that everybody can order. Been a lot of demand for that, so we're making that happen this go around. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. There are 2 existing Red Room trade paperbacks out there. All contain self-contained stories in each volume. 4 volumes, Hip Hop Family Tree. There are 3 volumes of X-Men Grand Design out there, and WYSIWYG for you to check out. My Patreon, I'm serializing the new Red Room stuff. Jimmy, tell the people what else.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Great ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, given those marching orders will be on our way.
Read more manga.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Alfred Comics said he just went on the website you're talking about, and for $156 including shipping, got the whole collection of Devilman, Captain Harlock, and Space Battleship Yamamoto.
Yeah, and listen, like, who was it?
Alfred Comic.
So Alfred, he just supported the publisher directly, and he wasn't a miser like me, because I went between eBay and Amazon and just like grabbed like, it was astonishing. It was $8 for Lupin the Third, and these 2 and 3 I got for like $22 or something on eBay. Nothing was $25.
Yeah. And
I've just it's been, I am overdosing on inspiration. It's so hard to, like, off the camera, like, I'm sure I'm annoying Jimmy to no end talking about all this bullshit that I'm reading, but
all he talks about is comics. So annoying.
So what we're going to do is tear down, set up in the other room, go talk to Eric Larson, and we'll start editing videos and uploading them to you guys later on. So let me just cut out of here.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for watching as always and supporting